Friday, of course. All right, let's do that. Let's go there. Okay. I think we should be good. Hey, what's up? What you got?
Hey, two things actually. I did kind of want to address a lot of the stuff that you said you had a problem with for like the natural law theory and divine simplicity.
Sure.
And then I wanted to push you on the God in time aspect, which I think is within the aseity issue that you had touched on as well.
Yeah. Although I think for your metaphysics specifically, I think the problem is way worse. Although I do think that the problem with God in time probably hinges on whether or not aseity implies like timelessness.
Yeah. So to start with, at least like the natural law theory, I think that one's the easiest one. The what you brought up as far as like the telos, things within their end. That is one possible interpretation of natural law theory. Natural law theory is a counter to the divine command theory of morality.
Sure.
So it's not a singular set. Basically, these two systems are set up to counter or answer the question: is murder wrong because God says it's wrong, or does God say murder is wrong because it is wrong?
Sure.
And natural law theory says, it's the second option. And then it states that we have the ability to arrive to reason and figure out what is and isn't wrong, even if there is no God. There's an example Aquinas used of men having multiple wives, and he used 3 levels of it to talk about the different aspects of it, and natural law is like the second level where we can use reason to figure something out, even if it's not the full picture.
Sure. Okay. Do you hold to like the parts of natural law theory that hold that there's like natural purposes to like, I don't know, various parts of your body, and that it's
that's specifically within the telos understanding of natural law. So like for example, when you brought up your virtue ethics, where you're using logic and reason, technically speaking, that fits under the umbrella of natural law. That's just one possible interpretation of it.
Oh, sure. So by natural law, you just mean like ethical naturalism?
Yeah, where you can use natural reason to arrive at understanding of what is and isn't moral.
Oh, I'm fine with that. The parts of natural law that I think are like absurd are the ones like the telos stuff. Especially because a lot of people will take the telos stuff to be like categorical imperatives, where there's like a lot of natural law theorists who end up saying like very silly things, like, it would be strictly wrong to I don't know, to like use your foot to like, I don't know, write on a chalkboard. It would be wrong to put a piece of chalk in your foot and then try to like draw a picture with your foot. That's not what feet are for. And it's like a categorical imperative too. Like you shouldn't write on the chalkboard with your feet, even if like the entire world was about to explode and this was the only way to prevent it. But yeah, it sounds like you don't hold to something like that. So I think it's probably fine.
Yeah. And I will say that like the way that the Catholic Church works, and this kind of leads into at least like the divine simplicity thing that you were talking about as well. It'll say, hey, bare minimum, this is what you have to believe. And then theologians go wild with it. So bare minimum, what I as a Catholic have to believe is that we can use our natural reason to arrive at at least most of what is and isn't moral.
Sure, that's fine.
And then the telos is one possible interpretation of that.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't take an issue with that view.
And then for divine simplicity, I did just, funnily enough, after you had brought it up, someone had brought up a term I hadn't heard before: absolute divine simplicity versus just divine simplicity. And the view I hold is actually absolute divine simplicity.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, it's like
again,
the much stronger interpretation of it. Yeah.
yeah, and that one you also said you didn't really have an issue. So again, like all
Oh
divine
wait, I
simplicities.
definitely have issues with
Oh,
like.
the one where I was talking about, like it's the benevolent cosmic horror, where we're trying to understand something of God, like, but God isn't actually what we would call good. It just appears as such to us, so we use it as an analogy.
Hmm. Okay, so there's a couple of things to say about that. One of the ones
Mhm.
I was actually thinking about this today. Are you familiar at all with like literature on like causal relata?
I am not.
Okay, so in like metaphysics of causation, there's a question of what is causation a relation between? Like what are these two
Mhm.
things like a type of? Are they are they objects? Are they events? Are they facts? Are they propositions? Are they
Mhm.
properties? Like what are they? Um, I think that divine simplicity has an additional problem with it, uh, which is that whatever model of causation you hold to, whatever relata you commit yourself to, you then need to say that God is identical to one of these. For example, like if you say causation is a relation that obtains between, I don't know, properties or events, well, then you
Mhm.
would say like what causes the universe is the event of God willing the universe into existence, but um, God willing the universe into existence, like God is going to be identical to his willing the universe into existence, and because that's an event, that means God too is an event, which is like presumably an unpalatable conclusion.
Yeah, I'll need to look into that definitely. Just hearing it, like one of the issues I have is like I wouldn't necessarily like if I caused a family get together. I sent out the invites and all of these different things. Like that's the event, but you wouldn't necessarily say that I am the event. And um, within classical theism, like the divine simplicity isn't necessarily saying that like the effects of the divine essence are the same as the divine essence in and of itself.
Sure,
Um,
that's fine, but you would say like the divine essence causes things.
um, not, I mean, it would depend on what terminology of causation we're using. The emanation, like it's not like a wasn't causing, then caused, and then stopped causing type of
No, that's fine.
event.
Yeah, it's
But
like a continuous like sustaining causation thing.
yeah,
Yep, totally
but
fine, no problem.
the reason I was bringing that up is a lot of the stuff you were talking about, like, oh, like, it sounds like God's goodness is his knowledge, and that seems ridiculous. I agree with you, and that, in my understanding, is the more, I wouldn't necessarily say like popular, but is the simplistic version of the divine simplicity.
Mhm.
Whereas the absolute divine simplicity is saying, hey, we see God, we see his essence, but because his essence is indivisible and we can only come to understand things by dividing it, we make these allegorical divisions of that divine essence to help us understand it. Where in this one interaction, it seems like God is acting with knowledge. And in this other interaction, it seems like God is acting with power. And in this other interaction, all of these different things we traditionally give to the divine attributes.
Mm.
They're
But
pointing to one and the same thing, but they're not actually one and the same thing.
yeah, no, I heard that like response, but I guess what I'm kind of asking is, do you think the divine essence is what produces things? Like, do you think it causes things? I'm just talking about like causation in the sense of like produces something.
Yes. So we come from the divine essence. Um, the way that Aquinas would describe it is, there was when I was not, and when I was not is the same thing as nothing. So that's quote unquote how God creates from nothing, but it's not like creation in our sense. It's more of an emanation where
Sure.
we're uh,
But would you say like God is
deriving.
like the proximate cause of things? So the
Where it's
closest
like it,
analog between like
mhm.
Aristotle's causal words and I don't know, like analytic philosophy causal words is the proximate cause. That's what's typically identified as being like causation in the modern sense.
Can you give me an example of a proximate cause,
Yeah,
just
like a
that way I can make
proximate
sure I'm
cause is
tracking?
just like the thing that comes immediately before the effect. Like, you know, where
Mhm.
you might say in like some sense that um, you know, I was caused into existence by my great 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 grandfather.
Yeah.
And that's like that's kind of true, right? Like that he's in the causal chain, you know, if he wasn't there, I wouldn't be here. But it's not like the immediate cause.
Um, I would say no, that he is not the proximate cause.
He doesn't
All
proximately cause anything.
not in like in it's kind of complex because like he is the proximate cause of all things having being. But as far as like I'm gonna pull from um, Augustine for a little bit here. So he held to what was called instantaneous creation, which from the sounds of it sounds like, oh, everything was created. There was man, dog, monkey, like everything that could exist was existed in a singular moment. Well, no, what uh, Augustine understood as instantaneous creation was all of the matter that was required to make everything that ever would and does exist was created at the first moment.
Hmm.
And then it was just different reorganizations of the pre existing stuff.
Um,
So
that's not
there you have
that's
so
not
you
really
have the
my
proximate.
problem.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm just asking like, okay, is God the proximate cause of that?
God is the proximate cause of everything that has being. He is not necessarily the proximate cause of the organization of those of that. Like, so like he's not necessarily the proximate cause of my parents creating me and the DNA structure, but he is the proximate cause of the fact that I even exist. If that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. So you would say, yeah, like he's the approximate cause of like the matter itself. Um,
Hmm.
sure. So then that does seem to bite into the critique that I have, which is just that any theory of causation that you're going to hold to, whatever you deem it's a relation between, like if causation is a relation between events, you're going to need to say that God is an event. If causation is a relation between, um, I don't know, facts, you're going to need to say that God is a fact. If it's a relation between properties, you're going to need to say that God is a property. Um, it's like a question of like what sort of causal relata you can hold to that would be coherent and wouldn't commit you to like something silly.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm fully convinced that that's a requirement for cause and effects, but I also haven't looked into this area, so I definitely
Um,
need to.
sure, that's fine. I could elaborate. Like, what part do you think is not a?
Well, like my, you know, I was the cause of a birthday party. Like I caused that party to happen. That's an event, but I myself am not an event, so I'm not confident that if an effect is an event, then its cause must be an event as well.
Sure. So the response that we'd probably want to give there is that there is like some level of abstraction of these things such that like stated accurately they are the like the cause is the same type of thing as the effect. Like maybe you want to say maybe you want to get really broad and say causes are like states of affairs and then effects are states of affairs. But there's going to be like some two things and causation is just a relation of those.
Yeah, like I definitely agree with like cause and effect is a relation between two things. I'm not convinced that they have to be the same thing, but I'll definitely look into
Sure.
that.
There's I think the SEP article on this does like a pretty good job.
What was the title of it? It was
Um, uh, Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. It's the Metaphysics of Causation.
Metaphysics of Causation. Okay.
Yeah, it lays out like a couple of views about like the relata.
Okay. All right. So I'll definitely look into that. That actually might tie into why you've been pushing on the God and his relation to time about the um, whether he's continually like if he's continually sustaining or if he's sustaining Socrates and Socrates is no longer here. Well, he's no longer sustaining Socrates.
Um,
Because
yeah, I think or wait, I'm sorry. Actually, wait. I would love to hear your answer to that.
yeah. So my understanding of like how God isn't changing in that interaction
Yeah.
is so to use your analogy of like the road changing from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. So we see that as change because of our relation to the road, and yes, that is a kind of change. However, the road itself isn't changing. Now, for God, he is eternally sustaining all of reality. And that's how it was like, hey, even though time might have had a beginning, it always existed because it's always being sustained by God. And so, because he is always sustaining all of reality, he is sustaining Socrates 2,500 years ago, still to this day. And what's changing is our relation to that singular act.
Okay. Would you then say, so it seems like you could say one of two things in that circumstance. You could either say that God is still right now sustaining Socrates, or you could say that God's will is temporally extended.
Could you elaborate on the second one?
Yeah,
My
like
gut
you're
feeling
saying,
wants
like
to say
God
the first one.
sustains, God has a will, and the will has like different components to it at different times.
I would say the first one because, and I might be a strict B theory of time here, or it might just be an misunderstanding of how B theory of time works. With God existing outside of time, all of it exists as real to him. So he's not moving through time. 2,500 years 2,500 years ago is just as real to him as this present moment is to us. So the analogy I would use is you have someone that's on the road and they can only see, their near immediate vicinity unless they're moving along the road, versus someone completely removed from the road, looking at it from, space, is able to see much more of the road because they're much more removed from it. And so they're able to see that relationship of the individual to the road itself in a much more fuller picture. So the thing with Socrates is he's still sustaining Socrates 2,500 years ago, just like he's sustaining us right now, and just like he's sustaining us 2,500 years in the future. Because what's changing isn't his act of sustaining through time, but our movement through time.
Okay. Would you say that it's true that God is sustaining Socrates simplicator? Or would you say like the true statement is that God is sustaining Socrates at this specific time?
I want to say simplicator.
That would seem to imply that Socrates exists right now.
I mean, I do believe in an afterlife, but I'm trying to avoid that.
That's not the sense that I mean when I say that he exists. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But if it is true that 2,500 years ago is as real as right now is, then I don't see a problem with saying that Socrates exists 2,500 years ago. He doesn't exist for us.
My question is, right now, does he exist? And right now, is it true that God is sustaining Socrates simpliciter?
Socrates does not exist in our temporal moment.
Mm-hmm.
God
Yeah.
is still sustaining Socrates 2,500 years ago. So it has to, like, and this is what I was trying to get at with the super chat yesterday. Is it feels like you're trying to put almost like a B or an A theory of time to God, where God's moving through time, instead of God being completely removed from time and looking at the B theory of time all at once, and is able to interact with all of time all at once.
Yeah. So I think the problem is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like, so earlier I asked you, is it true that God is sustaining Socrates in existence simpliciter, or is it true that God is sustaining Socrates in existence at this specific time? And at first you said, and I'm not trying to get you in like a gotcha moment, but at first you said simpliciter. But
Yeah.
do you think that like based on like what was just said, you might update your belief to say he's sustaining him at this specific time?
It might just be because I'm misunderstanding simpliciter, but to
Simpliciter just
me,
means like without respect to like
yeah,
anything further. Like it's just
yeah,
true.
it's all. It's almost going to depend on your perspective. In all honesty, it is true simpliciter to God, but it's probably true in relation to time for us. Like God is sustaining Socrates in time, in that specific moment of time for us, but from the divine perspective of God, it's true simpliciter.
Is God's perspective the true perspective?
Mm, this is, I'd almost argue, like a subjective sense in this situation. So for God's perspective, yes, it is true, but it's true because he's got the full picture. But that doesn't make our perspective of it, in the language we use of it, any less true.
Sure. So then you would say then that it is true simpliciter that Socrates exists without needing to specify like he exists 2,400 years ago?
Yes, if we're talking about from the divine perspective, and
But
then
that's just
which
the
is,
true perspective.
yeah.
Yeah, that seems to imply that Socrates exists as being like a thing that's true right now.
How would, not to like pivot or dodge,
Yeah,
but
that's totally fine.
to get your understanding
Yeah,
of
yeah.
B time, what does it mean to you then to say that it is as real for Socrates, like the temporal state of 2,500 years ago of when Socrates existed, is as real as this moment of time?
So
What does that mean for
yeah,
you?
what that means is that it's actual. It's not in like non-existence. It's existent, but just at like a separate time slice. I guess I'm specifically inquiring about like this time slice.
Yeah. So for this time slice, yes, it is true that Socrates does not exist. Now, because God is not in, like, he doesn't exist in this time slice. What he's doing in this time slice is also what he's doing across all time slices, so to speak. That's why it's kind of like a both and answer, because for this time slice, yes, it is absolutely true that Socrates does not exist, but because what God is doing now, he was doing 2,500 years ago, he's still sustaining Socrates 2,500 years ago relative to us, even if Socrates himself doesn't exist in this time slice relative to us.
So, okay, would you make the claim that right now God is willing Socrates in existence?
Yes.
And that's true
But
right now?
yes.
That okay.
Remember so
But is
the
he
analogy
willing is he willing that Socrates exists impliciter, or is he willing that Socrates exists at that specific time?
exists at that specific time.
Okay, that seems to imply that God's will has temporal parts. That God's will does different
Mhm.
things at different times.
So the analogy I like to use, and I don't know if this will help make any sense, is we're a fish in a stream,
Mm-hmm.
and we come across this little tip of a finger, and then we move on and interact with another tip of a finger, and then we move on and interact with another tip of the finger, and then another one.
Yep.
From our perspective, it looks like different interactions with different changes and different properties. But from the perspective of the fisherman, it was a singular act at different points in the stream. So God, when we're interacting with God in this time slice, it is the same interaction 2,500 years ago.
So
that's how it doesn't change, even if it looks like from our perspective it does change.
So the problem that I have with this is that your analogy that makes sense, although like that's kind of like exactly what I'm talking about is that those are spatial parts. The reason why that's possible is because it's distributed across space. So analogously, it would seem to imply that it's only possible that God was willing Socrates 2,400 years ago, but is not willing Socrates today, is because God's will is like temporally divided.
So the way that I would probably respond to that is it's not necessarily like if I'm writing a story and I know that, hey, I want this to happen at this event and this to happen at this event and this to happen at this event, my will on how that story is going to be written doesn't change even if the events in the story change.
No, I understand that. I understand that the
Okay.
will doesn't change, but my critique is not that it changes from being one way one time to a different way at a different time, but rather that in order to maintain the unchangingness, it needs parts. It needs to have the temporal part of doing this at this time, the temporal part of doing that at that time, the temporal part of no longer doing that at like some subsequent time.
We might need to spend more time hashing this out because I don't want to take up
That's
too
okay.
much of the time.
Yeah, it's an
here,
interesting objection that I stumbled upon. I was wondering what you thought of it. But yeah, I would absolutely love to continue this conversation later.
Yeah, because I think the biggest issue is we might be doing an equivocation of what it means for something to have parts.
Sure.
Where I'm thinking like, because to me, there's no problem with God doing something temporally in one sense because he's also doing that, that same act he's doing 2,500 years ago is the same act as what he's doing right now. Like an analogy that was told to me at one point was like about how a singular act can have multiple effects. Like, the sun is doing one act of fission, and granted, it's doing it over and over and over again. But from that act of fission, it can do sunburn, it can make the sand hot, and it can evaporate water. And so, even though from us what we're observing are multiple different effects where it looks like it's a part or a different event, in the perspective of God, it's one singular, full, complete act. And because it's damn near impossible for us to understand something that can't be divisible, we make these divisions to help us understand it.
Yeah, I understand that, and I know. Like at some point, what the Thomist wants to say is that like analogies are going to fail. But I feel like this like straightforwardly like is my point, which is that the example you're describing is only possible because there are spatial parts to the effect. Yeah,
that's why I like the benevolent cosmic horror analogy, because I think it's the only one that quote unquote doesn't fail.
sure.
Because it's but
There's if you want to read more about like temporal parts, there's the SCP article, another SCP article. This one's just titled Temporal Parts.
Okay. Temporal parts. All right.
Yep. something
I'll look
to
into that.
give a read. Yeah, do you have anything else?
No, that was it. Like, I just, when you were giving the rebuttal
Mhm.
of the god, you know, interacting with time, I was like, man, this almost sounds like an A theory of time, which just wasn't meshing with me. But now that I've got an understanding that, like, to you, it seems like in order for God to interact in that capacity,
I
it
think
would
so, yeah.
require temporal parts.
Hmm.
Now I've got a better understanding on what to look at.
Yeah, yep. Well, hey, who created God?
Um, he was self-sustaining, like he.
Oop, no answer. And then he ran away. Mid sentence, mid word even, he ran away. I didn't kick him. You know, that's some real skill to run mid word. Make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. That will go to the very next guest. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, hi, how you doing?
Doing well. How old are you?
I'm 25 years old.
Yep. And what religion?
I follow the God that has his son Jesus that died for us on a cross and was died, buried, and then resurrected.
Okay, sure. What makes you think that God exists?
I mean, what makes us think anything?
Evidence?
Evidence makes us think things?
Yeah, if you're rational, it does, yeah.
Okay, so I'm irrational because I think God helps us think.
Do you have evidence for that belief? If you don't have evidence for that
we don't
belief,
really,
that makes you
technically
irrational.
you could believe the Matrix and just nothing is real, so.
Yeah, and that would just be like an irrational belief that you have no evidence for.
Which is true, yeah, because it's like, I'm not saying Matrix is true. I'm saying like anybody can theoretically believe whatever they want because we have free will, in my opinion.
I agree. People have the capacity to hold a wide variety of beliefs. The ones that I'm interested in are the rational ones, and those beliefs are brought about with evidence.
Okay, all right. I mean, I believe what I believe is rational. I don't think it's irrational.
Do you have evidence for your belief?
I'm confused because whatever evidence that I bring, you're not going to believe anyway. You're just going to say is irrational evidence anyway. So
I don't think that's true.
I think it's true, but
okay, maybe you could bring some evidence by me and then see what I have to say about it.
There's things in history we can look at, like Pilate was confirmed to be a real Roman king.
Yeah, and Jesus is a real person.
There's many
I agree
writings
with that.
that Jesus was alive. There's many writings that the disciples were alive, that they were actually baptizing people, that there were miracles and other things of that sort. So there's a lot of literature that suggests that things happened. And outside of scripture. So
let's go through a specific example. What's the most compelling piece of historical evidence? Let's get very specific with it. What sort of historical evidence do you think establishes that, you know, there was like a miracle?
we have very old writings of the Old Testament. We have very old writings of the Old Testament.
Granted, I grant that. Yeah. Why does that mean that any of them are true?
I mean, if you don't believe it, it doesn't make it true for you, but it makes it true for me because
I just want the evidence that the Dead Sea Scrolls are true, is what I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, why would I think that what's written in there is true?
I don't expect you to believe it. We're just having a debate. And we can agree to disagree at the end of the day.
But do you have like evidence that it is true?
I mean, I felt as though God, I mean, not audibly, but that he speaks to me like as on like, you know how you like hear yourself and you hear the way you think? I feel like God speaks to me in that way. And I understand that that doesn't make any sense to you. I understand that it literally makes no sense to you because you don't understand that. So
why wouldn't God speak in that way to everyone?
I mean, I feel like as though God can.
But why wouldn't he
choose to live accordingly to his word? But
okay. So basically, let me get this straight. Basically what you're saying is that God is willing to talk to you, but only if you already talk to him. So he wants you to believe something with no evidence.
Yeah, it's not going to make any sense to you, I know.
Well, I just don't know. Okay, why would God make us so interested in evidence and so rational in our thought, and then deny us sufficient evidence to form the belief in him?
Sorry, repeat that again?
Yeah. in your view, God made us rational creatures who seek out truth and desire to know things in rational ways. Why would he make us this way and then deny us the evidence that's sufficient for us to actually
I don't
form
believe
the
he's
belief
denied
in
us
him?
the evidence. I mean, if you look at creation, if you just look into the sky, it's like how could anyone possibly even create this other than a like God that has been here like for all of time? Like he's outside of time, basically. Like if you look at creation, it's like there's literally nothing. Like nothing can't make nothing.
I
Okay?
agree. But what
I
if
hold
what
to
if the
that. And
universe
then,
always
so
existed?
so then what created us? And
Well, we came
unless
from
it's something outside
evolution.
of time, if that makes sense.
I don't see why it would need to be. I'm not sure why it couldn't be the universe
If you saw
evolving
a
in
watch,
accordance
would
with
you
laws
believe
of
there's a creator
physics.
to it?
Yeah,
If you saw
because
a
I know where
watch?
watches come from. I don't
Okay,
see a
but
reason to
what if there
think
was a
that like
watch
a
that had
rock
no
is the
creator? Would
same
you believe
way.
that that's true or no?
I wouldn't believe that there's like a watch with no creator.
Okay, so then why is the universe any different?
Because I know where watches come from. Watches specifically are made by watchmakers. I don't know that
Right.
universes are made by universe makers.
I mean, I would have to say that I believe that. So
Okay, do you have any
I hold
evidence?
to that.
Because I have lots of evidence that watches are made by watchmakers. You know, every
Yeah,
watch I've ever
exactly,
known
and that
is made
makes
by a
sense. So you
watchmaker.
have
But why
watches
would
made
I
by
believe
watchmakers,
that
so
the
you have a
universe
universe
is made by a universe maker?
right?
And I mean, if we take this argument to its conclusion, I mean, why not assume that God is made by a God maker?
No, because he's outside of time.
Okay, so
There
what?
has to be someone outside of time. Otherwise, you have creator after creator after creator who's
Yeah, why
outside of
not?
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what's the problem with that?
Yeah, so I'm going to say that God is outside of time.
Yeah.
He's the creator of all things.
Yeah.
And nobody created him
Why? Why not?
because it wouldn't make any sense. Then you have just
Why
an
not?
endless loop of who created who.
Well,
Does
oh,
that make
sure.
sense?
So then you're just brutally saying, well, I don't want the infinite regress, so I'm drawing the line here. You know, I just draw it one
there has to
step
be a line
before you
somewhere.
draw it. You know, I just say,
There has to be a line
well,
somewhere, though.
it's right here, you know, and it ends with the universe itself. The universe is the uncaused thing.
So you're saying universe is eternal?
Yes.
Okay, how so?
It just always existed. I'm not sure what Hauso is asking.
Gotcha. So you believe the universe maybe created laws into existence of how
No,
we should live?
the
or
laws always existed.
laws always existed? Okay. I mean, I can respect that and disagree with you. I'm not going to agree with it, but
Maybe, do
respect
you want
that
like some
opinion.
evidence for that?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So time is a fundamental component of the universe via space-time. You know, time exists if change exists, and change has always existed. What that means is that time must have always existed, so the universe must have always existed.
But time is always changing.
Hmm?
Okay, and what makes time just like... So was time created? So time
No,
is just
time always
ever
existed. Time's eternal.
Time always existed? Okay. So, okay, in our world, do we see things created?
Some things.
Some things or all things?
Some things. By created, you just mean like caused?
Yeah, like cause and effect, right? That's what you were talking about with the other.
Sure. Yeah.
Like
we
this whole
see-
universe is cause and effect, right?
Yeah, everything inside the universe, but there's two problems with this. One, we can make a parity argument and say, well, everything around us that we see that's made of material is made of already existing material, which means
Right.
that God couldn't have created it because God supposedly created out of nothing.
But if God can be everything, then that's sufficient enough.
You think God is
an answer to
everything?
me. God can create anything is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, sure, but you don't think that he's literally everything.
Not that he's literally everything, because there's also the absence of him which causes sin.
Sure. Well, okay, but then the inductive case fails, right? You're just
What is
saying
that?
like inductively everything we see around us has a cause, therefore the universe must have a cause. But then I'm saying like inductively everything around us has a material cause. That is to say that there's like some material that it's made out of, and that
Okay.
material already
Can
existed.
I ask you something?
Therefore everything has a material cause. Yeah, what's up?
Do you understand that everything in this universe is decaying over time?
I don't think that's true.
You don't think that's true? Because the speed of light is known to have been decaying over time, actually. It's an actual fact. You
I'm
can
gonna
look it
need
up.
the citation
No, you can
on
look it
that.
up. Seriously,
Maybe,
look it up.
That
It's-
totally might be
it's a
true.
fact.
Maybe I'm like just learning something new.
No, it's fact. Like you
Okay.
can look it up. I'm not lying. Like
Speed of light
the speed of light is actually going slower as we progress through time.
decaying over time. No.
Where does it
Says
say that?
the hypothesis that the speed of light is decaying over time is a highly controversial idea, largely rejected by mainstream physics, which holds that the speed of light is
So
constant. And like, there's a good reason for that.
there's people
You
that
know,
say
this is
no,
like
but there
literally
are
like the
people that say
bedrock of
yes.
all of
So
like
it's a
relativity.
so it's a
You know,
controversial
wait,
topic.
sorry, what's the? Can you name me a single person that holds this, and like, what's their evidence?
You just said it's a controversial topic, so obviously there are people that say
I said
the
it's
opposite.
largely rejected by mainstream physics.
But there are people that dispute it.
Do you know a single one?
Do I have to know a single one if it just
I have literally no
said that it's a
reason to think
controversial
that there
topic?
is one.
If it's a controversial topic, that means
I guess
people
we could.
obviously disagree.
Oh, sure. Wait. So I'm looking at it now. Apparently, the disagreement comes from the Creation Research Society and the Institute for Creation Research. These people aren't physicists. Do they have any
Okay,
empirical
so-
data on this matter? Like, let's just defer to the evidence.
So, okay, I may be wrong in the case that maybe it hasn't been proven. So you're right that I'm not speaking on fact then. I agree with you. I'm not
Okay,
speaking on
sure.
fact. I agree with that. I do backtrack when I'm wrong, by the way.
Okay, that's fine.
So-
Well, I mean, I appreciate
But
that.
I
think
do
that's like
hold
very
to that theory
intellectually
that I
honest.
believe that all things are decaying in this universe. I mean, if you look at anything in life, or on a molecular scale, everything is decaying, right?
I don't have a reason to think that.
Why? What do you think is not decaying in this universe?
Yeah, for example, time.
Okay, time. Okay, but if the sun exploded tomorrow, would there still be time in our universe?
Yeah,
In our galaxy, I mean?
yeah. Well, time itself would still exist.
Because things would age. Okay, I see that. Because things would still age. I see what you're saying. I thought you meant time in a sense that, like, okay, you see the sun rising and whatnot. Okay.
No. I mean, like the sequence of events.
So you'd say that time is gonna go on forever,
Yes.
which I agreed with, because when I go to heaven one day, I believe I will go to heaven one day. I'm not saying like, but for the sake of my point, when I believe when I go to heaven one day that I will live eternally, right?
Mhm.
I agree with that to that extent. But however, that's something that God created, that I believe God holds time. Okay, so I agree that time is infinite, but what about other things like matter? I was talking about materialistic universe. Is there anything in this universe that actually doesn't decay materialistically?
Well, if what you're asking, like, are you asking like, do things go to entropy? If you want a good example of something that doesn't decay, you can look to energy. Energy is neither created or
Energy doesn't
destroyed.
decay?
Yeah, it's neither
So
created
the
nor
sun's
destroyed.
not eventually going to die?
The sun is material. The energy that's in the sun is not decaying.
Oh, okay. Because I've heard theories that the sun could eventually just give out one day. I mean,
no,
stars
it-
die,
it
right?
totally
I thought
could,
I
yeah.
thought that stars die, correctly?
No, they
Is that
do.
correct?
They absolutely do.
Okay.
But then the energy that's within them doesn't disappear. It just gets converted to different forms.
Yeah, it just gets converted into different things. But I'm talking about decay as in, like, things that were as they used to be are no longer. And the atoms on that, the atoms that created that are no longer as useful as they used to be. Does that make sense?
Not
That's
really.
what I meant by decay.
Oh, sure. You mean you sound like you're referring to like entropy, like usable energy. That usable energy is decaying. That's true currently. We have no reason to think that that's always going to be true. We have good reason to think that, and the universe is currently expanding, but eventually it's going to start contracting, and then at that point, the entropy, the usable energy in the universe, will reverse.
You're saying, okay, so you think it's going to just recycle and things will backtrack, and we'll have like another whatever society that forms again.
Yeah, basically. Well,
I mean,
not
I
really like a
respect the
society.
theory. I don't
but
agree with it, obviously, but I respect.
I can
the
provide
theory.
evidence for it.
Yeah, of course. There's evidence of everything that you want to prove. I mean, you can literally come up with your own evidence and state it as fact, and that would be considered your own evidence. But
At that point, let's just go through and actually look at the evidence, because I disagree.
go ahead.
I totally disagree that there's like evidence for the
I
view
like
that
hearing
God created
people,
it.
and I like learning things. By the way,
Hey, and I appreciate that.
Yes.
So the evidence for this specifically is going to be the DESI data. It's like the dark energy spectroscopy something. So there was like a survey that was done, and it basically evaluated dark energy. Dark energy is the thing that's driving the expansion of the universe, and it determined that the acceleration of dark energy is slowing down over time.
Mhm. So that dark energy slows down over time.
Yep.
Okay, and so this survey, because it's a consensus vote, it proves that it's most likely true.
No, sorry, it's not a survey.
Because you said survey, sorry. I just
I
verified
might
that.
have said survey. If I did,
Yeah,
that's
you
not
did.
true.
You did. Yeah,
So
yeah,
dark
you did.
energy, spectropicy, and then somebody in the comments said instrument. So
Okay, so someone stated it as fact.
it's like data that was gotten through maybe like
And
a
it's like for
telescope.
sure 100% fact is what you're saying?
The data itself, yeah. Like they got the data through the instrument.
I mean, I'll have to look into it. That doesn't necessarily mean I believe it or not, but yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's the evidence that the universe is going to end in a big crunch, or at least it's going to tend towards a big crunch, at which point the universe is going to rapidly expand again.
Yeah, I could see that being, I mean, I could see how maybe that could tie into revelations in the Bible that I believe in, but yeah. Okay.
Do you have anything else?
Interesting. I think we had a very good conversation, not gonna lie.
Yeah, me too. I appreciate it. It was very cool. Oop, fuck, I probably cut him a bit too soon. But hey, thanks so much. Appreciate you. Let's read some supers. Andy, thanks so much for the super chat. Love watching. Would you mind stating the objective morality? I'm an agent stance again. I'd like to screen record it for myself, please. Okay, Andy, you freak. Premise 1, I'm an agent. Premise 2, if I'm an agent, then I take actions to achieve goals. Premise 3, if something is necessary to achieve my goal, then I have a reason to do it / have it. My freedom and well-being is necessary to achieve literally any goal that I could possibly have. Therefore, I have a reason to have my freedom and well-being, which is to say that I ought have my freedom and well-being. If I ought have it, you ought not interfere with it. And if you ought not interfere with it, then what I'm saying is that I have a right to my freedom and well-being just on the basis of me being an agent. But if me being an agent is sufficient for me to have this right, then all agents must have a right to freedom and well-being. Therefore, all agents, being like people who take actions to achieve goals, must have a right to freedom and well-being. Jack Islington, thanks so much for the $100 super chat. Holy shit, Jack. That's incredible. I love you, even. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. I appreciate how kind you are to people who are nervous. Like yesterday when people were trying to find, be good faith about things. It's nice that you don't feel the need to dunk on anything, though it's funny when people bring it on themselves, have a great weekend. Yeah, I think that that's the best policy, is that, you know, you should be kind and courteous towards the people who are kind and courteous. And then, you know, when somebody pipes the fuck up, you should beat them the fuck down, you know? If you want to get like rhetorical, then we can get rhetorical. I believe in winning across like whatever dimension the other person wants to bring the conversation. You know, if they want to have like a good faith exchange of ideas, then I mean that's a win, you know, getting new ideas. And if they want to have like an exchange along the dimension of like calling each other names, well, I can win there too. So I really appreciate that. That's the type of space that I'm trying to build. Will Day, thanks so much for the super chat. What would you think of an argument that God is an extra-dimensional being in a dimension in which time is as manipulatable as matter is to us? That's a problem insofar as the arguments that I make distinguish between metaphysical time and physical time. That even if God is the origin of of physical time, he can't be the origin of metaphysical time. Metaphysical time, well, first of all, physical time needs to map on to metaphysical time, but metaphysical time can't be created, which means that God is not an ase being, or he's not like, not everything is dependent on him. Is your ethical constructivist meta-ethic an anti-realist view? I'd probably say that it's a realist view. I mean, frankly. I think Korsgaard makes the argument well. To me, what it means for something to be an objective view or like an anti-realist view is whether or not there are universally true answers to moral questions. And constructivism doesn't have like a heavyweight ontology to it. All you're really working with is like the commitments that everybody must rationally hold to. But nevertheless, I think that there's an objectivity to it insofar as, you know, there's right and wrong answers in it. But anyway, make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. W anime, what are you doing? If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. I also ask that you have some sort of reason to think that God exists. W anime, it doesn't look like you're joining. I think people have tried to... One sec. I have the logs. Let me pull the logs. Well, that's really strange, is that he doesn't even show up in the logs. Typically, it will say, this person was invited, and then, like, they declined. So that doesn't bode well for you. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Yep, doing well. How old are you?
I'm 35.
And what religion?
I'm a Catholic.
Okay, what makes you think God is real?
Well, basically, I chose to believe in God about a year ago.
Okay, but would you say that this is like a rational belief?
I don't think it is irrational, but my reasons are not rational. They are subjective.
So when you say that your reasons, so you formed a belief in God based on irrational reasons, that would seem to
No,
make
I
the
said
belief...
they are not irrational or
Oh,
rational.
they're not irrational, sure. Well, what are your reasons for thinking that God is real?
Well, I started trying to believe. I used to be an atheist all my life. Like, I watched a lot of atheist experience and Sam Harris and Hitchens and stuff like that. And I used to be convinced that, well, there's no good reason to believe in God. There's no evidence. There's no good argument that you can rationally reach a belief in God. But as I look around the world and things starting to go bad, and instead of a positive direction, I started to think that maybe not everyone can manage in this life to lead a proper life and find meaning without a faith in God. So I started to try if I can believe in God and thinking about religion more open-mindedly and trying to experience belief instead of just rationalizing it.
Do you think that it's possible to live a good life if it's all based on, like, just falsehoods?
If it's knowing falsehoods, yes. If you knowingly try to lead a good life based on falsehoods, I don't think you can do that. But like, if you are just convinced of it truly, but for some reason it turns out it's not true, so it was false, then yeah, I think you can lead a good life.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Like, let's say we have like a woman, and she from her perspective, she has it all. She has, kids who she loves. She has like a husband who treats her great. She has like coworkers who are really nice to her. But then in reality, like, her kids hate her. Her husband is cheating on her with her coworkers, and her coworkers all talk shit about her behind her back. Like, all the things that she thinks make her life good actually aren't real. They don't exist. All these relationships are completely fucked. Would that be a good life?
I mean, she might have a good reason to think that she is living a good life. If there is no self-evidence that all these things you said are actually true and she's just deceiving herself, then yes, she might have every reason to think
Well,
that
let's say she does have like reasons to think that those things are true. Let's say that all of these people are good at keeping up the appearance that they like her and care about her, and then they all make fun of her behind her back and they all hate her. Would that be a good life if she has like a reason to think that actually they all like me, but in reality they all hate her? Is that a good life?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
I find that deeply unintuitive.
I mean, but why though? Because if they keep up not just the appearance, but the effect of being a loving family, Basically, how is that distinguishable from the real thing?
That's my point, is that I don't think whether it's distinguishable from the real thing is the determiner of whether it's a good life. I think whether or not the things that you deem to be the thing that makes your life a good life, whether those things are real or not, is necessary for a good life. That a life that is based on falsehoods is not a good life. It's like delusional.
I think I know what you mean, because I used to think too that everything I believe, I must know for sure that it is true.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Just like the core tenets of your life, you can't be mistaken about like the core tenets of your life and still have a good life. How could you possibly believe that you have a good life? I mean, you don't even have the life that you think you have. How could it possibly be a good one?
If you don't have a very good reason to believe in your core tenets.
But my point is that you don't need that. My point is that if you are mistaken about the kind of life that you are living, then it can't be a good life. If you just don't even understand your life, how could you possibly evaluate whether it's good or not?
But I don't think that that's analogous to what I'm saying my belief is. Like, I understand my faith. I just don't have, when it comes down to it, I don't have a rational, evidence-based argument to why God exists instead of he doesn't. But to me, it's come down to there is no reason to believe that it doesn't exist. Like, if there was good evidence that there is no God, then it would be an irrational faith. But since it doesn't, I think it's kind of like choosing your own moral, your own morality, your own moral lens view of the world.
I mean, okay, so I don't agree with that at all. I think that obviously, if you don't understand your own life, then you can't deem your life to be a good life in the first place, because what you're saying is a good thing doesn't even exist. But I suppose, setting that aside, maybe I could just give you an argument for why God doesn't exist. Here's the argument. If change always existed, then time always existed. Change always existed, therefore time always existed. If time always existed, then the universe always existed. And if the universe always existed, then God never made it. Therefore, God did not create the universe. But if God exists, then he created the universe. So God doesn't exist.
Yeah, that is a good explanation of why the universe could be infinite, but I don't think there's any good existing data to prove that this is actually the case, definitely.
But which part of that would you reject? Like,
Well,
there's like
there
specific steps there that build to the conclusion. So you need to tell me like which of those steps is wrong, or I'm happy to repeat them too.
None of those steps are wrong. Theoretically, all of those steps could be right.
I'm not asking which one could be right.
Any evidence that this is the fact of our universe.
I'm asking, like, which one do you disagree with? If you agree with all of those steps, then you must agree with the conclusion. In fact, maybe what I could do to make this debate a bit more, I suppose, like, accessible, I could just write this out on the screen. Okay, so we got premise 1, change always existed. Premise 2, if change exists, then time exists. Premise 3, if time always existed, then the universe always existed. Oh wait, sorry, if change, let me add, always existed, then time always existed. If time always existed, then the universe always existed. If the universe always existed, then God did not create it. If God created the universe, or if God exists, then God created the universe. Therefore, God does not exist.
Okay, so maybe if you want to go down this, let's start with premise one.
Yeah.
Why do you think that change always existed?
Sure, because if we have a state that doesn't have change in it, to go from a state without change to a state with change, well, that would require a change to occur. So you would have change before change exists, which is a contradiction, which means that change cannot come into existence, so it must always exist.
Yeah, but my understanding that there are many physicians with theories like before the Big Bang, there was just nothingness, and instantly everything was created out of a vacuum of nothingness. So in that case, it would be that before there was nothing with no change, and then just somehow something started to exist.
I guess I can just motivate the premise, and then you can tell me which premise of the supporting premises you disagree with. How would I want to formalize this? If change doesn't exist, or maybe if change begins to exist, then a changeless state changes. If a changeless state changes, or I guess like changeless states don't change.
Yeah, but the problem you're running into now is that you're kind of like the theist who doesn't understand how the universe could be infinite. That it's completely possible that your conception of change is ununderstandable if before the point of the Big Bang it was an infinite nothingness without time or matter.
But which premise do you reject? Do you reject premise one or premise two?
That change is understandable at the beginning of the universe.
Okay, and is that premise 1.1 or 1.2? It's that, like, of the highlighted ones, which of those two do you disagree with?
That, like, state changes. Like, it could very well be that is an...
You think that changeless states could change?
I think that maybe changeless state cannot be understood as changing.
Sure, so then changeless states don't change. So you agree with the 1.2. Do you agree with 1.1 that if change begins to exist, then a changeless state changes? Oh, sorry, I actually need a third premise here just to bridge it. So that demonstrates that change does not begin to exist. If change does not begin to exist,
sorry, but
then it always existed.
Yeah, this is a good theoretical, philosophical argument, but
you need to reject a premise, otherwise it's true.
Yeah, do you disagree with my understanding that our current understanding of the universe works, that we know that the universe is expanding from one point, and that's understood as a Big Bang, and before that point of flash, we don't know for sure what was there.
Well, we could know for sure that change was there because of the argument that's highlighted on screen. You need to reject a premise, otherwise logic necessitates the conclusion. If you accept all the premises but reject the conclusion, then the thing that you reject is logic.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that we can apply logic with an unknown
then your belief is
state
illogical.
Of existence before the universe existed.
That's fine. Then if you
like,
are saying point blank that your belief is illogical, then I'm fine accepting that, and I'll say that it sounds like your head is hardened against atheism.
Yeah, but is it really? I mean,
you're saying that you hold illogical beliefs.
But like even now, we have experimental physics showing us that logic doesn't always make sense on the quantum level. So is it really illogical?
There are no violations of laws of logic in quantum physics.
What about the split line theory?
So what does the split line theory refer to? Is that just like different wave functions?
Yeah, that's like when the wave goes through two split lines.
Oh,
the
double slit experiment. Okay, yes. Which law of logic does that violate?
Well, how can something go through like both lines at the same time?
What is that? Your understanding of the double slit experiment?
That's what I recall right now.
So, okay, what the double slit experiment is actually doing, what's actually going on there, if you have like a wave, waves produce this thing called interference. Imagine you have like two waves in the ocean and they crash into each other. Well, that would actually take away from both of them. But then there's another effect, which is like if you have one wave and then like another wave, they'll add up to like a super wave. So because of interference, when it's in like a wave-like state, there are interference patterns. This is like prior to firing like the particles at the beam emitter. It's going to emit in a wave-like pattern that shows interference. But then when you turn on like the thing that interferes with the electron gun, the thing that becomes entangled with it, there's no longer these interference patterns. Instead, it has like a particle pattern to it. So there's no violation of laws of physics there. Or, sorry, of laws of logic there.
Yeah, okay. That's not how I used to understand about it, but...
Is there something that I said that was wrong?
No, I'm not 100%
Okay.
on that, but...
Sure. Is there anything else you wanted to... Oh, sure, go for it.
Yeah, basically I was just saying that the beginning of the universe is still not understood, that I don't know if our logic can be used to try to guess at it.
So I think that we do know what the true laws of logic are, insofar as the rejection of them is self-defeating. Things like, for example, the law of non-contradiction, that contradictions are never true. I mean, if your belief is contradictory, well, then your beliefs are illogical and false, frankly.
Sure, but I don't really find that argument persuasive when we are talking about the start of the existence of everything.
You don't think saying like contradictory beliefs are false is persuasive?
Well, not for this case.
Ooh, I think you covered your microphone.
Yeah, not for this case. No, not when we are talking about that. Nothing could have come for nothing. The universe could have
that's not what I believe.
Itself. Any of those cases.
Okay.
Like,
is there a problem with like the universe always existing? And why would I think that logic changes?
Well, I just don't know if logic applies at that point.
Okay, well then any belief that's formed would be illogical. So I think that position is self-defeating.
Well, no, because once the universe exists, then maybe logic only applies to existence.
Do you think that your belief about the start of the universe is a logical one?
I don't know how the universe started to exist.
But your stance that the universe didn't operate in logic...
Well, there was no universe, so...
Yeah, in that state you're saying that logic didn't apply. Is the belief that logic doesn't apply a logical belief, or is that an illogical belief?
I think it's logical because we are talking about a state of being that is incomparable to anything.
So, okay, so you're saying it's logical to believe that logic didn't apply?
Yes.
That seems self-defeating. How could that possibly be a logical belief?
It is possible because we have nothing to compare that state of existence, non-existence to.
Well, when we say possible, what we're saying is that it doesn't violate laws of logic.
Well, maybe it does.
Then it's not possible.
But you cannot know that.
You can. Logic is true, actually. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, no.
Okay, hey, I appreciate you coming on up. Appreciate it. Make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you're 18 or older. Make sure that you believe in the God of the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. Lonald Lump, thanks so much for the super chat. How do you argue against those who believe only to avoid hell? If you don't believe, then hell may or may not occur. No loss after death if you believe. Simply just Pascal's wager. Well, Okay, the first thing that I think is worth saying is that you have no clue which of these various options is the true one. You know, infinite options that could take place. Second of all, not an argument for God, straight up, full stop. It's saying the argument tries to establish that you have a reason to believe in God, but it's not an epistemic reason. It's like a prudential reason. It's not the sort of reason of like a reasonable belief. It's like the sort of reason like, you know, live your best life, boo, type reason, where it's like, you know, well, your life is going to be good if you do this, as opposed to, you know, here's a reason to think that it's true. I also think that we have no reason to think that Christianity or any of these religions are at all plausible, especially if God is willing to torture people, in which would include like a rejection of the epistemic condition of moral responsibility, which is basically saying that in order to be morally responsible for wrongdoing, you needed to know that what you were doing is wrong. If you don't know what you're doing is wrong, if there was no way for you to know that what you were doing is wrong, you're not really morally responsible for that. You know, if there is no like easy way for you to come to the true moral beliefs, it's hard to say that you're morally responsible in a circumstance like that. I mean, you didn't really understand like the relevant reasons that were at play. So I don't think that there's any reason to think that Christianity is true or Islam is true. So necessarily a God that tortures you forever for not believing in him rejects the epistemic condition for moral responsibility. And that's like super implausible. That leads to like genuinely insane bullet bites. Like you'd be saying like babies are morally responsible. Like any attempt to appeal away from that would have to say something like, no, they don't understand. But if not understanding is sufficient for you to not go to hell, I don't understand that Christianity is true. So I don't know. I just think that there's like tons of knots. Park, thanks so much for the super chat. Can a realist believe in anything paranormal? XOXO. I think so. I mean, I think atheism is compatible with believing in like ghosts or whatever. Although I don't think there are any evidence for ghosts. The Rabid Squirrel, thanks so much for the super chat. Have you seen Penrose's theory of conformal cyclic cosmology provides a mechanic for entropy reset, even with continuous expansion? That's interesting. I've not seen that. I'll look into that. Reagency. What about animals? A lion's freedom and well-being requires interfering with a zebra's freedom and well-being in a pretty profound way. Yeah, that's true. Although the reason why they lack moral obligations is because they're not reflective agents. Reflective agency is the thing that leads you to those conclusions, but the conclusion that you arrive at is just agency. Like agency itself is the thing that's sufficient for it. You need reflective agency in order to reflect, but you don't need reflective agency in order for the argument to be true. All right, let's go to the very next guest. Hey, how's it going?
It's going well.
Yep, how old are you?
38.
And what religion?
A little bit of everything. There's a little misunderstanding that everyone seems to have that they don't seem to quite get, but I have something that's going to fit everyone's criteria.
Okay. Well, what makes you think God exists?
Well, I didn't think he did at one point, but he definitely does exist, and it's hard to explain, but I'll do my best.
Yeah, just like the evidence would be cool.
Right. So, all religions that we currently have that exist are kind of, you gotta have to cherry pick all the best parts, really, and we're supposed to bond over the similarities, and then you would have the God, but instead,
I'm asking like, what's the evidence that God exists? Like, okay, well, I'm wondering like, what pattern. Sort of reason would I have, like something like a fact that raises the probability of God's existence? What sort of thing do I have? Like your answer to that was, well, you need to cherry pick the best thing, but saying like you need to cherry pick the best thing isn't really like, I have no reason to think that like the thing that you end up with is existent. So why would I think that exists?
This realm, because we have free will, he can't really intervene. We are the living proof, but the funny thing is,
what's the evidence? You're just saying that he exists.
Give me a second here. I'm gonna try to explain this the best way I know how. he basically, we are sent here in his behalf to do stuff because he's the observer.
What's the evidence for
And
that?
his language that he speaks to us is called signs. And,
What's the evidence
it's
for
all
that?
over.
Do we have any evidence?
Well, let's say, what are the today's modern problems? There's a gender war going around, right? And if you look around, you can tell that it's not man.
Do we have
'cause-
evidence?
Yeah, this is the evidence. So God
Wow.
operates like a child, so he's foolish. and he's
Women ain't
childish.
shit, therefore God exists.
I didn't say that. You said it, but there's phrases, there's words, there's signs, there's movies, and that's how he operates like a child.
Wow. Do you have
kinda foolish
anything
like
other
that.
than like nouns?
He acts through randomness and coincidence.
What's the evidence
and
for
influence.
that?
It's still in the works of it, but if you look around, I mean, everything that we have existing, like through music, through
Okay.
titles of movies, and
I
Yeah.
stubbed my toe earlier today. Why does me stubbing my toe give evidence for God's existence?
I'm not sure, but you know.
Okay, well,
Pretty
I'm
good
looking
start
around. I can't seem to find the evidence.
Well, the reason why he can't really intervene in this world is because of that free will, and it's because we're actually in hell.
Okay,
dun,
what's
dun.
the evidence for that?
Well, other than hello, I mean, that kind of is a dead giveaway, isn't it? Right? Hilarious. Let me say good morning because we're, rise and
Hello.
shine. I know, funny, right?
Guten Tag.
yeah.
Zhao Shang Hao. Therefore God exists.
See what?
Which means like good morning in Mandarin. Zhao Shang Hao.
Yeah, unfortunately, I am Chinese, but I don't speak Chinese. I know I'm a failed Asian.
Oh, I won't make that claim. If you want to make that claim, that's on you.
No worries.
Well, do you have any evidence or?
Well, you want to know how? Well, there's science because everything works in harmony, including science and physics and all that stuff. It all actually proves one another correct after you get enough information. And God loves atheists the most. Christians are just a label that God doesn't abide by. Yeah.
Okay, I'm confident that this is going nowhere. Hey, how's it going? Alan?
Good. Is this me that's up? Yeah.
Yeah,
How
it is
doing?
you. Welcome.
Hey, I run across your deal here from time to time. I'm not really a TikToker, and I think I'm breaking your rules because I'm not a believer. But I just wanted to bring to the surface one thing that I don't think I've ever heard it before. And I could go on for hours, but I'll make it real quick if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, so if we think for a moment about the creation of the universe and we try to imagine how vast and significant it is, I mean, we can look out there and we can see it. And then if we think about physicists, people who have spent their lifelong pursuit in education and understanding physics, and yes, we don't really understand how the universe began, and that's okay. But I want to contrast that against something that I hear so often, and every time I hear it, just drives me nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the language and the words and the syntax that's used in the religious community. And those words are things like goats, lambs, sheep, sacrifice, blood sacrifice, flesh. If you contrast that against something that is even remotely intelligent, it just blows my mind away. And that's really all I had to say. I'd
Okay.
like to hear your comments on that.
Well, sure. Hey, well, that's I mean, I think I don't know enough about what you're describing with like the religious language. Like, I understand that language gets used, although I'm not entirely sure what the problem with it is. Like, obviously, I think like the sacrificing stuff is like really dumb. That it's like silly that a religion would demand like a blood sacrifice. Like, that's obviously wacky, but I guess those are my thoughts. Well, I'm moving on to the next one. Well, make sure you're double tapping on that screen, sharing it with your friends, doing all that good stuff. If you're in that guest request box, make sure that you are 18 or older. Whoa, thanks so much. Or not, I guess, you know, or that won't happen, it seems. Or, hey, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Yep, doing well. How old are you?
I am 24,
Yep, and what religion?
Christian.
Okay, what makes you think that God exists?
Well, I was kind of wanting to go back to, I don't know if you have that screen that you
The-
were sharing earlier.
Yeah, you mean this one?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yep.
So I was kind of, I guess the way I was kind of wanting to challenge this a little bit was, God would be independent of time, space, or matter, right?
Mhm.
So he exists outside of what we define as like change. Like we say change is a change in time or space or matter. Like, and you're saying there was a changeless, you can't have change from a changeless state.
Yes.
But God would be independent of time, space, and matter. So those things don't apply to
Okay.
his definition.
Did God change from not bringing the universe into existence to bringing the universe into existence?
Yeah, it was an act of creation, right?
Then God changed.
No, his essence didn't change. He's still omniscient. He's still independent of time, space, and matter.
But his will
he-
changed, right? He went from not willing something to willing something.
I would say, was always in his essence to bring about creation because he is good and creation is good.
Sure, then you would say that his essence depends on something external to it.
No, I would just say it's like a byproduct of his essence. Like it is in God in of himself is perfect love, perfect in of itself, and in that perfection he brings about a creation.
Sure.
He wants to share his beatific vision, right? He wants
Okay.
to share his love.
Then you would say that God lacks free will because he doesn't have an ability to not do this. It's necessary. You know, God's a necessary being, which means that his essence is necessary, and his essence necessitates that he creates. So there's no room in there for free will for God. Would you agree with that?
Well, I would say God has a will. Like he has a will.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I would say that his will it differs from the will that we have. I'm assuming you believe in free will, right? Or do you not believe in free
Depends
will?
how you're defining free will. But do you think God is free will? Did God have to create? Could he have not created?
I would say, well, so now you're saying is like, could God have not created, right?
Yes.
So it's like you're making it like a choice whether he would create or not create.
Yeah, like did
But I
God
would
have a
say-
choice in the matter, or was he like choiceless in doing that?
Well, his intention is always good. So as a result of his good, creation came. So it wasn't like he was like, oh, should I create the world or not create the world? It was like, he's like, I'm going to bring about creation. I want to create other things.
But did he have like a choice in that matter or no? I feel like we're just not getting an answer to this question.
Well, I'm kind of like, I guess maybe stuck on the word choice because I don't think he was like, God doesn't contemplate.
No,
the way
I know
that
he
we
doesn't like
choose.
contemplate. What I'm asking is like, did God make a free choice in bringing about creation, or was it like forced?
It's a part of his will. So it is like, there's
It's
no
not
other
an
way
answer to
do
the
it.
question. Does God
Yes,
have free
it
will or
is.
no?
Yeah, he has a will. Yeah.
But does he have free will?
God's will is God.
But does he have
So-
free will?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would be hesitant to say, like, in the way that we have free will, God has the same free will as that. It's more of like in his omniscience, he brings about creation.
So what you said God is his will,
Yeah, God just, yeah, he
but
is
his will changes. His will changes from not creating to creating.
No, it doesn't change. It was always in his will to bring creation.
But then does he change from not creating to creating?
Well, he's omniscient, so he's independent of time. You're trying to confine him like that was a choice in time that he made, but he was independent of time.
Well, one of two things is going to be true. Either God was always, if God creates at all, either God was always creating or he was not always creating. If he was always creating, then creation always exists, which means time always exists, which means actually he never created it. Flip side is that God begins to create, which means that God changes from not creating to creating, which means that he's not outside of time.
But you're saying that, like, you're acting like that choice to create when you're saying, like, oh, he made a choice to create. You're confining him to time there, because, like, if he's omniscient, as soon as he brings about time, space, and matter, those things are going to come into existence, but he is not confined by any of those things.
Was God always bringing those things into existence?
It was always in his will, yeah.
I didn't ask that. I asked, was he always causing those things into existence? Not was he always planning to, was he always causing those things into existence?
What do you mean by causing?
Like producing? Like bringing into existence?
Was he always
bringing them into existence? Yeah.
Existence is existence, so
thanks.
Yeah.
Wow, it was very informative. I was unaware that existence was existence. Do you think that there was like some state where God exists without creation and God is not creating?
Yeah, but I mean, but that's just
sure. Then he begins to create.
But if you're like, but eternity is not like, we can't really comprehend what eternity looks like.
Well, it's worse than that. It's contradictory. God exists alone and he's not creating. Then God begins to create.
But he exists independent of time, space, and matter.
Yeah, it's the contradiction. So it's that he exists independent of time, space, and matter. That's how we derive the contradiction.
Okay, well, I feel like
God changes, but he exists independently of time. But everything that changes needs to be in time. Yeah, I know he's independent of these things, which is why he doesn't exist.
I feel like this is how you're looking at it. Like, if we look at like a timeline, let's just say it's like 100 feet long. Then you're trying to say in the middle, like 10 feet, let's say from 50 to 60 feet, that's where creation is. That's where the creation of the universe is. So you're saying from like 0 to 50 feet, God just was, and there was nothing else. And then at 50 feet, he just decided to create. So you're confining him to time when you're doing that. He's independent of time. So it's not like there's a timeline and he's just nothing. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, I want to create. That confines him to time.
Maybe I could give you like a supplementary argument that indeed demonstrates that point. Premise 1, God changes from not creating to creating. Premise 2, if God changes, then he is in time. Therefore, God is in time.
Did you hear I just explained this?
Well, yeah, it still leads to the contradiction. You need to reject one of these. I know what you want to say. What you're trying to say is like God just doesn't make sense to us. He's independent of these things, and that doesn't make sense to us. You need to reject a premise.
I would say God doesn't change. He can't, like when you're describing the creation of the universe, right? It's not like a change.
Okay, so was God always creating?
When you ask that question, you're just ignoring what I said, though.
It's a yes or no question. Just a yes or a no.
No, he wasn't like always creating.
So he began to create.
there was a point independent of time where he brought about creation. Yes. But see, when you use the word began, like began is a word that is confined in time.
Did
like
God begin to
to
create, or
start,
did
to
he not
begin.
begin to create?
All of those words are like trying to put God in time, in a timeline.
Sorry,
Do you
and how
see?
does it do that?
Begin, the word begin and like change, those words are from time.
Yeah, no, and I understand that words like change are within time, and if you take the word begin to be something that's in time, well, then I have big news for you, which is just that means that God is in time. So
No,
one of two things is true. Either God began to create or God did not begin to create. It's a true dichotomy.
So your main proof for God not existing is because it wouldn't make sense for him to just
There's a logical contradiction. It's not that it doesn't make sense. You're not tracking.
Okay, so elaborate on a
Yeah.
little more.
If God did not begin to create, then he was always creating. If God did begin to create, then he changes. If God changes, he is in time. Okay, wait, I guess that just leads to the conclusion: either God was always creating, or he changes. Oh, sorry. Let me round this up. Yep.
To go with your word change,
do you reject premise 1, 2, or 3? Premise 1 is God began to create, or God did not begin to create. If God did not begin to create, then he has always been creating. And then the third one is if God did begin to create, then he changed.
Yeah, I'm disagreeing with all of them.
You reject the law of excluded middle. You reject a basic law of logic. You don't think it's true that either God began to create or not.
Well, the word begin is in, you're confining.
That sounds like you're saying that he did not begin to create.
He created. He's independent of time.
Okay, so, and was he always creating?
No, like as soon as creation.
That sounds like a beginning. I take like if something happened and it wasn't always happening, that's a beginning.
Yeah, beginning of our universe, sure, like beginning of his creation.
Well, it sounds like God began to create.
Well,
if the universe begins to exist, then God began to make it exist.
Do you think the universe is infinite, or do you think that there was
and to be clear, you do reject a basic law of logic, right? Like you would point blank say you reject premise 1, which is a basic law of logic, the law of excluded middle, saying either a thing is the case or not. You would just reject point blank logic.
Well, I'm trying to ask you a question because no, I don't reject logic.
Okay.
But what I'm
do you disagree that this is an instance of the law of excluded middle?
Can you just answer my question?
Okay,
my question
I guess we're just gonna dodge the logic. That's fine.
No, I'm just trying to ask you a question to better understand.
Sure, go for it.
Try and get somewhere because I feel like we're not getting anywhere.
Well, I think what really needs to be understood is that the thing that you're rejecting is not any of the premises, but logic itself.
No, that's not true.
Okay, well, you disagree that this is a example of the law of excluded middle? Okay, sure, please? Yeah, go for it.
Do you think that the universe came into existence or was always infinite?
Yeah, it always existed.
So you reject a Big Bang theory?
No, I accept the Big Bang. The Big Bang says nothing about a beginning.
Okay, so before there was...
Sorry, are we just derailing away, or are you just running from the blunder, or...
No, I'm just trying to understand what
you just completely switched to a new topic.
Creation is. No, it's applicable because it's... If you think
okay, I'm gonna direct you back to the thing that we're already on. Do you disagree that the first one, the highlighted premise, is an example of the law of excluded middle?
God began to create, or God did not begin to create. I tried to that's not something you can just easily
Is this the law of excluded middle or no?
my point is that there's can't just be a creation.
It's a yes or no question.
Is this excluded middle or no?
Is this the logical law known as the law of excluded middle or no?
I mean, I don't know what you want.
Okay, I mean, I can show you. You know, here's the law of excluded middle. It's so it's right here. So this is just any proposition. The little v right here means or, you know, as demonstrated right here, and then this is just not. Like the little squiggly means not. So it's literally saying A or not A.
Okay.
Okay, so you would agree that then this right here is an example of the law of excluded middle, and you reject this, so you do reject the law of excluded middle.
I feel like with this, we're not going to get anywhere. So
I just need you to say that you reject this law of logic, and then we can move to whatever point you want.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, go for it.
Like, so do you think that there is a free will? Do you?
Okay, sure. So we're just like straight pivoting away.
I mean, we're not getting anywhere on this point. So
just
yeah,
answer the question. It's because you don't.
But you're just
when I
to,
say
like,
back to you,
into a corner.
You literally said you rejected this premise, did you not?
Yeah, I don't think that God, if God exists independent of time, it wasn't like he was like, oh, I'm going to create. Like, oh, it was a point in time where he's just like, I'm going to create.
Why does the first premise say that? In what way does the first premise say that?
Because you're implying that God did not begin to create, like he was existing before creation.
Okay, so it's not the case that God did not begin to create?
It's not the case that God did not begin to create. Like he brought about creation. Yeah.
Would you say it's not the case that God did not begin to create?
I don't know how to like answer that.
Just a yes or a no.
I mean, but I feel like it can't be answered as a yes or a no.
It's literally a yes or no question.
But it's like a straw man argument. Like
it can't be a straw man. It's literally a yes or no.
I would say that there wasn't like.
If it's not your view, then you can say no.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say no. Like I don't know. I don't agree with that. Yeah.
Sure. So you disagree that it's not the case that God did not begin to create. So then you would say that it is the case that God did not begin to create.
But, like you're just asking questions. Like, are you?
That is how like a debate works, right? You know, you ask questions.
Okay, I feel like with this we're not getting anywhere.
Okay,
so
that's fine.
To the free will.
Sure.
Argument?
Yeah, I'll allow you to pivot to free will.
Okay, so you do believe that there is a free will, correct?
It depends how you define it.
I would say it's like we're not just random chemicals. We're not a byproduct of random chemicals.
We're not random chemicals.
Like love is not just like oxytocin. Like it's an actual.
Oh. Well, what's the argument for that?
That like, let's say like, okay, let's take your mom, for example.
Yeah.
Like if you love your mom, like I would say that that's not just because.
What's the evidence for that?
Because like as humans, we have a complexity with emotion that no other animal has.
But why would I think that doesn't come from oxytocin?
Well, oxytocin, I mean, does happen with love. Like that's a chemical response in the brain, but it is not the cause of love.
What's the argument for that?
That humans are more complicated creatures than.
Then why would that mean that it couldn't
animal.
be from oxytocin?
Because like, I mean, think about any decision you make out of emotion, right? Or any emotion you feel is like, it's not just a byproduct of chemicals and randomness.
That's your conclusion.
Like there's an order to.
What you're trying to justify is that the fact that humans are complex means that oxytocin is not what love is. What's the argument for that?
It's not what it is, but it is like a result of like love. I mean, you have oxytocin in your brain as
you think love causes oxytocin?
Like in the feeling of love, when we experience love, yeah, there's an oxytocin.
But what
release.
causes what?
I would say that like love causes,
The oxytocin?
Yeah.
Then why would it be the case that people without oxytocin receptors are incapable of feeling love?
People without oxytocin receptors are capable of feeling love. Yeah, because love is not confined to a chemical. It's
what question do you think I just asked you?
Well, it seems like you're asking, like, how could someone that doesn't have the neurotransmitters to respond?
The opposite. Why is it the case that when you lack the neurotransmitters that you don't have the feeling?
When you lack the neurotransmitters, you don't have the feeling?
Yes.
There's people like that?
People... receptors... feel. Sure. So what you don't feel specifically is attachment and bonding. So people without this don't have attachment and bonding. And then serotonin, because another one of the chemicals that goes into the feeling of love is serotonin. So if you were lacking both of those, then presumably you would have just no feeling of love.
I would say, yeah, maybe you lack the feeling of love, but I feel like I would believe you still can love.
I don't know what that means.
It's like love is something that exists outside of those neurotransmitters.
Okay. What's the evidence that you can love without that?
So you would say like the way that you love your mom or like a friend or whoever is just like a result of let's just say oxytocin and serotonin.
Yep.
So, but like, do you see how like shallow that is though?
I'm sorry if like truth makes you sad, but it's still truth.
But that would just make there'd be
no purpose. It makes you sad, right? Anything. Like, yeah. Do you think like it makes me sad is like a counter argument?
No, I don't think that's a counter argument at all. But I'm saying like that would just make us random. We would just be a random existence with no purpose to anything. Would you say that there's like what gives you purpose in your life?
Yeah, for example, like everyone has a reason to live a good life.
Okay, so what's that reason?
Like, the reason specifically is that if you were to trace your like reasons for action, you take specific actions. If you asked, well, why am I taking this? You would back up to something that's like more all-encompassing of your life until eventually you're going to end up with the life itself. The ultimate end, the thing that we're all acting towards, is a specific type of life. The best type of life is one that rationally leaves nothing to be desired, and that we'll just call the good life. What that's going to include specifically is embodying various virtues. Virtues like courage. You need courage in order to actually achieve the things that you want to achieve. You need temperance for the same reason. You need to be wise in order to know what is valuable and what's not valuable. You need to be just in order to make sure that your evaluations are fair. So that's the purpose, is to live a good life.
Yeah, live a good life with virtues. Where is it thereby do you think we get those virtues? Like,
those virtues are necessitated by the fact that a good life is impossible without them.
Okay, so there's like an objective truth of having good virtue.
Yep.
So where does that come from?
Yeah, it comes from laws of logic.
Laws of logic?
Yeah.
So but then where's your like anybody could have their own truth,
laws of logic? You think I'm sorry, like I know in the Christian worldview like ethics are subjective, but do you also think like laws of logic are subjective? Because in my worldview both of these things are objective.
Logic is the way as humans we use reasoning.
Logic in my sense is the rules of valid inference, things like the law of excluded middle, law of non-contradiction, law of identity. I'm not talking about like like the folk sense of logic, where it's like, well, I'm, I just reason about things, and I'm talking about like formal logic.
Yeah, but like logic is just a human construct. It's a way
What's
that
the
we
argument for
define our
that?
universe.
What's the argument
So-
for that?
Because like that's how we observe. We use our senses, our knowledge, our mind. Like that's what math is. It's logic and reasoning.
Do you think that humans just could we have invented like 2 to be 5?
Logic, I would say, is God derived. Like it's a
Oh, I thought you said humans made it.
no, sorry. Like it would be something it's our way of perceiving God's creation.
Okay, so
And
is it
our
human
ability
created?
to have logic is from God. That is a good thing we have from God.
So is it objective or subjective?
Logic is, yeah, it's objective. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So then there's no problem with saying that morals come from laws of logic, because I likewise think laws of logic are objective.
But like you state those virtues, like good temperance, good charity, whatever your virtues, right? What is the measure at which you have good virtues? Like, are you just the measure of it?
No, the measure of it is what enables you to live a good life, what enables you to live a life that leaves nothing to be rationally desired.
If you have a group of 10 people and they all have a different objective truth of what good virtues are, you're going to have, like, all of them are going to be, in your eyes, what they're doing might be bad temperance, or they might be acting poorly, but to them, it might be good.
Oh, yeah, and then those people are wrong. The people who are violating laws of logic, well, those beliefs are the false ones.
So your view of logic is Ian's logic.
No, it's the true
Ian's
view of
truth.
logic.
No,
2 plus
it's
2 is
Ian's
4
logic.
isn't Ian's 2 plus 2 is 4. 2
It's
plus
not
2
2
is
plus
4.
2 is 4, though. We're talking about virtues.
No,
and you're
so we're talking
saying
about
that to have
logic.
successful
Logic is
virtues,
objective,
it's-
like mathematics is objective. And right, like I understand the confusion because everything is subjective on the Christian worldview, but on my worldview, all these things are objective.
No, everything is not subjective on the Christian
Why ought
worldview.
I do what
It
God
is-
tells me to do?
Why? Because you're his creation.
Why does that mean that I ought to do what he tells me to?
Because he knows what's good for you. He
And
knows
sure, and is it
what is
good
good.
because he knows it, or does he know it because it's good?
God is good. He is goodness. And
Sure,
he
and
wants you to be
Is
good.
the way that he
But
is
he's not
that way
going to
because it's
force
good,
you,
or is
because he
goodness
will-
the way that it is because that's how God is?
He gave you a free
Which
choice
one?
to wait. Can you repeat it?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Is God the way that he is because it's good to be that way? Or is goodness the way that it is because that's how God is?
Goodness is derived from God.
Okay, so which of those
He in
two
of
is
himself is all good. He's right and just.
it? But
He
which of
is
those
an-
two options is it? Like which determines which? Does goodness determine God, or does God determine goodness?
God is goodness, so goodness is derived from God.
But I'm asking about like God's nature. Is God's nature the way that it is because that's the good way to be? Or is goodness the way that it is because that's God's nature?
Yeah, that second one.
Okay, goodness is so if God's nature was to like rape babies, then raping babies would be good.
Well, obviously that's not his nature, though.
But if it was his nature, would raping babies be good?
But it's not.
But if it
So
is,
what's the
and
point of
right, like
that?
I know, so that was a conditional. I know you don't know what a conditional is because you don't know the first thing about logic, but if it was in God's nature
That's just like
to
an
rape babies,
illogical.
would that be good?
That's an illogical like example.
Just
It's
answer the
not-
question. If
it's-
that was God's nature, would it be good?
I can't answer that question
If
because I
God
know
commanded
that
like a
that's not
genocide,
good.
would that be good?
If say it again.
If it was in God's nature to command a genocide, would that be good?
I can't discern his will. There's times where there may be suffering to
Would it be good? Is the
prevent
question.
less suffering.
If it were
there
in
was,
God's nature to command a genocide, would that be a good thing?
if there were genocide in God's nature,
Yeah.
like it would it would be good.
Sure, then you do think that genocide is good because that is in God's nature.
No, not
It
saying
is.
all
It's in the
genocide
Bible.
is good.
Sure, so then
No,
it's
that's not-
it's relative, right? There are some circumstances where it is and some circumstances where it isn't.
Right. Based on his will, there's times where it might be actually prevent more suffering. It actually might be.
Sure. So, Buck, wait, you just brutalized yourself. You just said that the standard of goodness is suffering. So
No,
wait, then
that.
that's an objective standard that has nothing to do with God.
I didn't
So
say that at all.
you just said it might prevent suffering. You just demonstrated your axiological commitment to suffering. You take suffering to be more fundamental than God is.
No, that's not what I said. I said that suffering could be a reason for, God might have moments of suffering to produce good. That's what I'm saying.
Sure. So then God makes his decisions based on what reduces suffering, implying that there's something bad about suffering that's independent of God.
There's something bad.
You're saying that God reduces suffering because that's the good thing to do. So reducing suffering is good independent of God? Or does God just prefer less suffering?
Reducing suffering. Say that again?
Yeah. You're saying that God reduces suffering because that's the good thing to do. That means that goodness
God reduces suffering.
Is that not what you said? Like he commands genocide to reduce suffering?
Yeah, but like suffering is something that we have brought upon ourselves to an extent too. Like by our own free will, we have brought in this departure from God. So God gave us the choice whether or not to, live by his will or to not live by his will, but he knows what is good for us. If he was just like, I'm going to make robots that, are a byproduct of me, have no free choice and will always worship me, that's not a loving relationship.
What makes the reduction of suffering good?
What makes the reduction of suffering good?
Yeah.
Because suffering is pain and God wants to remove suffering, but he can't just remove flaws that we have just because of our free choices.
But why does God want to reduce suffering?
Wait, say that again?
Why does God want to reduce suffering?
Because by his will, it would be good, I would say.
Sure. So if God preferred more suffering, would that be good?
But he doesn't.
But if he did, if God wanted more suffering, would that be good?
That just doesn't even add to the conversation. That doesn't.
It does, and I think you realize directly how absurd it is, which is why you won't even commit yourself to what's required by your position, which is that if God prefers differently, then your ethics are different.
But God is it is truth. So there's no truth apart from what is God's truth.
So wait, if God didn't exist, then truth wouldn't exist?
We would all have a subjective truth. If we had no one objective truth, we would all just be
would
random.
Truth exist?
No, it would just be everyone has
would
their own
it be true that truth doesn't exist?
Would it be true that truth doesn't exist?
Yeah.
Right now?
No, if God didn't exist, would it be true that truth doesn't exist?
If God didn't exist, there wouldn't be existence at all.
Okay. And would it be true that truth doesn't exist?
If God didn't exist, nothing would exist.
And would it be true that nothing existed?
What? Would it be true that nothing existed if God didn't exist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, then truth would exist without God, so God isn't truth.
Nothing would exist without God. God is truth.
But it would be true that nothing
because
exists.
Of God. But would it be true that nothing exists?
You just said yes, it would be true that nothing existed.
If God didn't exist, nothing would exist.
Okay, and is that true?
Is what true?
That nothing would exist in the world where God doesn't exist?
I can't even answer that. It would just.
Okay.
How would you even answer that?
Either a yes or a no. Either it exists or it doesn't.
No, but you're just
it's not a sliding spectrum. You either exist or you don't.
We live in a reality where we exist. We live in a reality where existence was created by God, and there is an objective truth that is God's truth.
Okay.
And sorry, go ahead.
Sure. Why does God, knowing that something is good for me, mean that I have a reason to do it?
Because if he knew it was good for you and your soul, your spirit, if he knew that it was good, why wouldn't you do it?
Well, what reason do I have to do it? Let's say I don't care what God says. Do I have any reason to do what he
that's
tells
your
me?
choice.
Sure,
No,
then your ethics are subjective, so you have to subjectively choose to listen to God. So you don't have objective ethics, it's all subjective. The only way that you have a reason to do what God tells you is if you subjectively listen to him.
We have a free choice to accept God's truth or to reject it.
And is that choice
That
subjective? Is it a subjective choice?
It's a free choice.
Is it subjective, though?
Every individual has the choice. It's a free choice.
Is it subjective? Are choices objective or subjective?
By the way you're asking, I would say subjective. Like everyone has their own choice.
Then to listen to God is a subjective choice. So your ethics are subjective.
But they're God derived. There is one objective truth.
And it's subjective. Right? Like I need to, in order for it to be ethical, I would need to have a reason to do it. And in order for there to be a reason to do it, well, it's subjective. I either subjectively decide to listen to God, and then I have a reason to do what he tells me, or I subjectively don't, in which case there's no reason to do what God tells me.
Yeah, but I would say that's just what free will is. It's just your choice whether or not to pursue godly truth, godly love, godly virtue, to pursue God through Christ, or to reject it. That's your free choice.
Yep. Yeah, then it's subjective.
Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with that.
But it's subjective, right? You know, rape isn't objectively wrong in your worldview, it's just subjectively wrong, right? You know, if the rapist doesn't subjectively choose to listen to God, then there's no reason to think that he ought not rape in your worldview.
No, there's an objective truth.
Sure, let's say this rapist doesn't give a fuck what God says. Does he have any reason at all to do what God tells him?
If a rapist say that again?
Yeah, there's a rapist. He doesn't care what God says. Does he have any reason to do what God tells him?
No, he has his own free choice.
Yeah, so then you can't say that he ought do anything, because to say that he ought do something means that he has a reason to do it. And he doesn't have that reason.
He ought to not rape that person.
Why?
Because he doesn't have... No, yeah, that's... I'm sorry, I'm
Sure, yeah.
restating. So he ought not to rape. So you're saying like, since he doesn't have that objective truth, like the rape in his eyes is not wrong.
Because he hasn't subjectively decided to listen to God. There's no reason, in your view, why he shouldn't rape.
Well, I would just say that's a human without God. So it's in an absence of God. And in absence of God, we make bad decisions. We do things that pull us away from God. And obviously rape or killing or whatever, sinning, lust, whatever it may be, are things that poison our spirit and bring us away from God and bring us suffering, right?
But what reason does he have to do what God tells him to if he doesn't care?
Because there's still, whether he accepts God's truth or not, there still is an objective truth, which is God's truth. So it still exists.
In order for that to be the case, there would need to be some reason for him to listen to it, but there isn't.
There would need to be some reason for him to listen to it.
Yes.
I mean, like there are, let's say you have a Christian, like you have a believer and a non-believer, and they both commit a sin. The believer is judged more harshly than the non-believer, because the non-believer does not have, they do not know God. They are not trying to seek the truth of God. So like, it's like okay, so imagine you're a parent and your kid, like you're trying to teach them something. Like after you teach them something, like the punishment is going to be worse the second time if they wrong you, right? So like if they steal some candy, or if they're like, whatever, let's just say they steal candy, for example, right? You tell them no. You're not going to be like so hard on them that first time as you would be the second time. So I would say that's maybe an analogy that could come into play.
That doesn't, maybe you could elaborate. I have no idea how that answers the objection.
Well, I was going to say, like, that person that raped, that was whatever, in that example that you have, in that example, like, they don't have the objective truth, but what they're doing is still objectively wrong.
So when we say something is wrong, we're saying that you ought not do it.
Yeah.
In order for that to be the case, there would need to be some reason for them to not do it. What reason does this person have to not do it in your worldview if they don't care what God says?
I would say that as God's creation, we all have, like, what's good written on our hearts. So, like, people, I would say that when people do something horribly evil, they've been deceived by evil, and they might be led astray. They could be, there could be reasons that they are fucked up in the head. There might be emotions that, like, trauma, whatever it might be, right?
That's just, like, not true. As an empirical matter, that's just not true. Your claim is that people all intuit what the true moral conclusions are, that it's all written on our hearts. Well, people have very different ethical intuitions, especially throughout history.
But I would say people in general know things that are good and bad. Like, they're like, me and you would agree that it's wrong to kill a person. And I would say,
actually, you wouldn't agree to that because God commands the killing of lots of people, like the Amalekite infants.
Okay, let's say I shouldn't just go. I do not have the authority to go out and kill a random civilian.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I would think that that's like an injustice.
Yeah, so we agree. We do have, like, an objective agreement on morality there.
I mean, we certainly agree on it. I'm not sure why you would say it's objective. I don't grant that there's anything objective about your worldview.
That's a God-derived truth. Like, without that, we would just be. I mean, that's like in the Bible, right? Sodom and Gomorrah was like.
Wait, so it's wrong to kill a civilian. So was it wrong when they killed the Amalekite infants?
Well, see, that's
or were the Amalekite infants
that's completely
combatants?
different because that's God doing it.
But were they combatants? Does God disagree with these ethics?
They were completely lost to sin, and it was like
the infants.
He must have. Well, it was like by committing that genocide, there would be a prevention of further suffering. And I'm not God, so I would never be able to, like, know what. Like, I'm not one to say, oh, God was wrong in doing that.
Did the infants deserve it?
Well, I would say there was a prevention of more suffering.
But did the infants deserve it?
They were probably spared suffering.
But did the infants deserve it?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm not God, so I'm not going to be. God is right and just. He is the judge. He is the authority to judge all of his creation. So I am not going to judge anything that God does as right or wrong.
So
it is right.
The infants deserve it?
I have no answer for that because, like, I'm not going to.
Are you saying, like, you don't know? Or are you saying, like, you don't want to answer?
That question. Well, yeah, when you're asking that question, and if I say, yes, the infants deserved it, it'd be like, oh, so you think infants deserve to die? And
yeah, like, there are some circumstances where you think infants deserve the death penalty. That would be true, right?
Obviously, like, I value a human life, like all human life, right? And you're talking about, so this is like Old Testament when this was happening. So God is trying to pave the way for salvation for all through Jesus. So now it's like we're not going to have a big mass genocide that God just comes and smites people, because we have a savior, Jesus Christ, and you have the freedom to accept it or reject it.
Okay, but did the infants deserve it?
Oh my gosh. Like,
they either deserved it or they didn't. I can walk you down both paths if you'd like, Let's say they didn't deserve it, then God would have given a punishment to a people that didn't deserve it.
God did so. He had a reason, and his reason is good. We are not to sit here and judge God's decision.
Do you
That
think
is
it's
a dangerous
possible
thing to
that
do.
God gives punishments to people that don't deserve them?
No, he
Sure. Then they
no.
must have deserved it.
They were in some way spared from something.
So the infants did deserve it, because God would never give a punishment to a group that didn't deserve it.
I would say that that's not the right word, that they deserved it. Like,
That's the one I'm asking about, is desserts.
okay, if I'm going through a lot of suffering and my suffering is ended, you wouldn't say, oh, I deserved it. I deserved to just die. You'd be like, oh, that's a gift to be absolved of suffering. But sometimes suffering is good, like in the sense of like when we live a life in sin, there's damage to our soul. And so we suffer. Like there might be anxieties, there could be ingenuine connections, could be disorder in our life. It feels like we're just at the center and there's just like no, it's just busy. It's a lot of noise. But until we see, I didn't grow up Christian either, you know? So like, I feel like maybe that could be an interesting perspective. Like I would say I wasn't an atheist, but I was like agnostic. Like I kind of believed that there was something, you know, like a God, if you would say that, but I was not Christian. I didn't grow up in a Christian family or anything like that.
Okay, that just categorically doesn't answer the question. I'm still on the same topic.
I was just trying to provide like
I just need you to say either yes, the infants did deserve to get slaughtered. No, the infants did not deserve to get slaughtered.
You're just like stuck on that, and you're not trying.
You're not
to
answering.
Have, like,
it's a yes or no question. Every time you get cornered into a question that you don't have an answer to,
no, because you try and use like words that are just like so. They're like the word deserve. I would not say that like it's fair to ask like, oh, did they deserve it or not deserve it? Like that's a question that I cannot.
Would it be fair to ask? Is it fair to them?
Would it be asked if it would be, say that again?
Yeah, was the death penalty fair to those Amalekite infants?
It was justified by God.
Was it a fair punishment to give to the Amalekite infants? Is it fair? Sometimes is it fair to give infants the death penalty?
It was justified by God's will. That's enough.
But was it a fair punishment?
It was a preservation of suffering. So I mean, if it's God's will, it's good.
But was it a fair punishment?
See, I mean, here you go with the like you're just trying to like ask questions like, oh, but was it fair? Did they deserve it? Fair? Or was it was just? It was just.
Okay.
There was a reason for it.
But it still doesn't answer the questions. Was it fair? Did they deserve it?
You're just trying to rationalize it as like a human. Like
I'm trying to understand the answer. It sounds like you know the answer, but you don't want to say it.
But I could never answer to you why God did something.
I'm not asking why. I'm just asking, is it fair? I'm not asking you why God did it. I'm asking you, is it fair?
Yeah, I mean, I can't, like, I don't know what you want me to say to that.
Either like, yes, it is fair, or no, it's not. Either yes, they deserved it, or no, they didn't.
But it's not that it's, oh, is it fair or not? It's God's will, so it was just. And we are not here to sit and look at the reason that he did that and go, oh, was God in the right or wrong?
I'm not asking the reason. I'm asking, is it fair?
Is it fair? I mean, when you say that, we define fair. Like, what's your definition of something that's fair?
Just something that treats like cases alike.
That treats like cases alike.
Yeah.
Well, God desires good for all. So in his act, I would say he did something that was fair then.
Sure. Okay. So you think that sometimes it's fair to give infants the death penalty?
Okay, well, the death penalty is something, you know, we have now as to give to criminals, right? So like, I wouldn't say that it's like, oh, God was giving them the death penalty. Like he was just carrying out like yes, there was death involved. Yes, there was suffering involved, but by his will, he was preventing more suffering. He was preventing more wrong, more bad.
So,
this-
so God's like a greater good type guy. God's like utilitarian.
He knows what is good because he is good.
Sure, but it sounds like you're saying like God does stuff for the greater good, so he's a utilitarian.
He doesn't do stuff for the greater good. He is good.
You just said that he does things because there's goodness in it
Yeah, because it's
like
his
greater
will
than
to do
the
good.
act itself. Like there's like an outweighing good.
It's his will to do good. So there is good in everything that he does because he is good.
Okay.
He is what is goodness. Goodness is derived from God.
Okay, sure. So I guess like why is slavery bad on your view?
Slavery, like as in,
Like owning people as property, why is that bad on your view?
well, see, that's like an interesting thing because like
How would you justify the conclusion that slavery is bad on your worldview?
I would say slavery is bad when there is a harm to another individual. Like they have less rights. They are treated poorly, right? So like
Sure. Well, a
Yeah.
slave like innately has less rights because they're property.
Well, yes, but I would say that's not like abiding to authority is not necessarily a bad thing. Like we all abide to authority to some degree, right? Like there is a hierarchy in a society. Like you have a boss, you have people you work for. If you're someone's mentor, if you're someone's parent, if you're a child, there's always like a authority.
But do you have like
something.
fewer rights than that person?
I mean, you're under authority, so like they
Do I have like fewer rights than my boss?
No, I would say no, you don't have fewer rights, but like it's like human rights, but like there's things obviously in that company, let's say for example,
Yeah.
that you couldn't do.
Yeah, sure.
Like
So-
you couldn't like you couldn't go up to the higher ups like he could or whatever.
So
know?
would you say for example, sorry, I got completely disoriented by your pronoun choice. Would you say that
What?
slavery, you said he?
Wait, what?
It's okay. Let's move past it. So in terms of, you would say like slavery becomes wrong in circumstances where it diminishes one's human rights.
Yeah, if you're imparting, suffering on an individual, that is wrong.
Sure. So when God said that you could beat your slaves with a rod, that was wrong.
He never said you can beat your slaves with a rod.
This is this is Exodus 21, 20 through 21. When a slave owner strikes a male or female slave with a rod and the slave dies immediately, the owner shall be punished. But if the slave survives a day or two, there's no punishment, for the slave is the owner's property. So he's saying
So you're just
you
gonna
can
throw
beat your
like
slave
a
with a
Bible
rod.
verse out of converse, out of
Do you wanna read the
So
context?
now you're
Let's
like
read the
this. I don't
context.
understand why atheists like always are like, oh, I'm gonna quote the Bible now.
Yeah,
It's
you,
like
I mean, you believe
don't-
it. There's a contradiction on your view. Is that bad?
But,
Is
like,
what God's saying
if I
bad?
were to go through Exodus and read that verse in context, I would say that there would be like it's not the same as just like saying, oh, it's okay to just beat a servant whenever you wanted to.
Why? What are the restrictions on it?
Well, I mean, in the New Testament, for example, like there is that parable that Jesus tells about a master and his servants. And this was kind of the one I was explaining to if there's someone who is not a believer and does something bad versus someone who's a believer and does something bad, the punishment, as in like the beating, because it's a parable, it's used the word beating on the person that doesn't believe is less harsh than the one that is on the one who believes, right? Because it's like they are rejecting. So like I guess like maybe it's
Sorry,
like
how
helps to
about we
hear that, like,
you want the context? Let's just read all of Exodus 21.
Okay, let me get my Bible.
These are the ordinances that you shall set before them. When you buy a male Hebrew slave, he shall serve 6 years, but in the 7th he shall go out a free person without debt. If he comes in single, he shall go out single. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his master gives him a wife and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out alone. But if the slave declares, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out a free person, then his master shall bring him before God. He shall be brought to the door or the doorpost, and his master shall pierce his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him for life. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she shall not go out as the male slaves do. If she does not please her master, who designated her for himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, since she has dealt unfairly with her. If he designates her for his son, he shall deal with her as with a daughter. If he takes another wife to himself, he shall not diminish the food, clothing, or marital rights of the first wife. And if he does not do these 3 things for her, she shall go out without debt, without payment or money.
Okay, so we're looking at like obedience. The context is obedience.
The context is the laws concerning slaves. That's what the header says.
Right, like a servant. Like it was
like a
common
slave.
for there to be servant, slave.
Very different. You don't own servants as property. You do own slaves as property.
There, I would say, like in the Bible, it's the word servant is what's used.
It's talking about people owned as property.
Okay, so like let's get back to that, what we were talking about, like the authority, right? There is always a level of authority.
Anything to avoid actually reaching the verse for which you will have no
I'm
context.
trying to explain.
Wait,
I'm trying
let's
to explain.
sorry, what's the context for saying that you can beat your slaves with a rod? What's the context there?
Disobedience.
And is it good to beat your slaves with a rod if they're disobedient? Is that a good thing?
In the context here that's looking at, okay, if you're disobedient to your parents, which you should be obedient to your parents.
Not parents, your slave owners. If you disobey your slave owners and they beat you, is that good?
Okay, let's say I had help.
That's another question with no answer.
But like this is what I don't know, like this is
it's another yes or no question. Either it's good or it's not good. Which one?
Here. I would say it's not good to just for no good reason to just beat in this case, to beat somebody.
Your slave is the word you were looking for.
Okay.
So are there circumstances where it is good to beat your slave?
Well, the New Testament does not, like you reading from the Old Testament has nothing really like, it doesn't really like pertain. Like Jesus Christ came in the New Testament.
Yeah, and he abolished it, right? He abolished the Old Testament.
Not abolished, but fulfilled. He fulfilled it.
Yeah.
He is the law of Moses.
Sure. So let's read it. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law, or sorry, for reference, this is Matthew 5:17.
Yeah.
Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So it has a single letter of the law passed away.
It is not like gone away in a sense that it's like no longer important, because it's still important for the fulfillment of Jesus Christ.
Are you teaching people not to own slaves and beat them?
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't own a slave and beat them.
So you do break some of these commandments and you teach others to do the same.
That's not a commandment, dude.
It is. It's in the law.
It's not a commandment to own a slave and beat them. That's not a commandment. You don't know what the word commandment is.
Wait, sorry. Is this referring to the law or is it not? You identified this as referring to the Levitical law. Did you not?
It's not law. It wasn't law that it's just like, oh, you know, now you have to keep this. There's like a law that you have to have a slave and beat them.
The law is that you can beat them. Do you tell others not to follow that law, that you can beat your slave?
I just don't think you understand what it is that
It sounds
the
like
Old
you're going to be called
Testament is.
least in the kingdom of heaven.
I don't think you understand what the Old Testament is in relation to Jesus Christ in the New Testament.
Okay. I mean, for some reason you're unable to engage with this. Is this
I'm not unable
referring?
to engage.
Is there
You
was there or
wrongly
was there
used
not
the
a
word
law?
commandment. You wrongly used the
Sorry,
word commandment.
was it
You
or
do
was
not
it
have
not in
an
the law that
understanding.
said that you could own a slave and beat them too, or was that not in the law?
You do not have an
Another dodge.
understanding
Okay.
of the gospel.
Okay, another dodge. Sure.
It's not a dodge. It's just the
Is that a
questions you're
law or is that
asking
not a law? Was there a law that said you can own slaves and you can beat them too, or is that not a law?
in the Old Testament.
Yeah. And that is in the Mosaic law.
It wasn't like
Was
the
it there or
laws of
no?
Moses were to set apart God's chosen
Was
people.
it in the law or
whom
was it not
through
in the
them,
law?
who through that chosen people,
Oh boy,
that chosen
another
nature.
dodge.
Listen, I'm explaining to you.
Was it
Through
in the
that
law or was it not in the law? Which one?
It was to set apart. The Old Testament was all a process of setting apart God's people, got the chosen nation of Israel, whom through that nation all nations would be blessed through Jesus Christ. So there's no partiality now.
That's great. Was it a law or was it not a law?
And here you go. You just like don't listen to like
through
what I'm
Jesus
trying
Christ, he
to-
abolished all the partiality, and there's no partiality anymore. That's great. Was it a
didn't-
law or was it not a law?
He fulfilled the law. He is the
Is it a law or is it not a law?
Just like that question doesn't even make any sense. It's so
You
like
don't
short.
understand the question. Was it in the law or was it not in the law? You know, you're
Was it
confused
in-
by the concept of something being a law or not being a law.
Dude, you didn't even know correctly use the word commandment.
Commandment is referring just to the entirety of the Levitical law.
It's God has specific commandments. I would say it's not a
And
commandment.
sorry,
is not-
which one of the what's one of the least of the commandments? Could I get an example of the least of the commandments?
the least?
Yeah, the word that's used in the verse. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments. Can I get an example of one of the least of these commandments?
Whoever breaks one of the least of these
Yeah,
commandments.
which do you think is the least important commandment in your opinion?
I don't know, but like there are certainly rankings among like if you were to lie, that would not be as bad as murdering somebody.
Is that a commandment?
Thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery.
Thou shalt
right? Like,
sorry, you said lie. Was thou shalt not lie a commandment?
it's no.
You
it's not
referred to that as a commandment.
Well, okay. Well, let's use adultery or an example. Like the committing of adultery versus murdering somebody. There would be a difference between there.
Okay, and what's your basis for saying that one of these is worse than the other?
Probably just the that one is actually taking someone's life away.
But what's the basis for saying that
they're both sin?
But are they just as bad?
Like in a way, sin is sin. Yeah, there's not one sin that's worse than another. All sin is sin, but like,
oh, well then that's a contradiction, because if you're saying all the commandments, breaking any of the commandments is equally sinful, then there is no least of these commandments.
Well, maybe
so it's not referring to that.
Maybe I'm not answering it properly, and I would say that maybe I'm not well versed enough to give you like a solid answer on that.
Yeah,
but
that's okay.
Okay, yeah, help me out.
Yeah,
just in the verse where he says, "I didn't come to abolish," it's the law. He says law. He doesn't say the commandments.
No, he's talking about, therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same. That's the commandments that he's referring to. But these commandments of this is referring to the thing that he was just talking about, the law.
Yeah, it's all the laws. He doesn't like reference the commandments until later. Like there's parts where he's like specifically talking about the 10 commandments or which commandments are more important. But when he's talking about like, I didn't come to abolish, he means the entire law, because he says the law. Just sorry, Dylan. I don't know if you. I can't hear if you respond. I'm a theologian, so I like look into some of these things. I also it's like worth pointing out the verse that you brought up from Luke, where Jesus is talking about slavery, is just to bring it back is kind of a interesting move, because he mentions in that story that some slaves deserve beatings. Like he's confirming that Exodus verse. So it's just kind of an interesting one to bring up as an apologetic, to be like, no, look, slaves don't need to get beat because Jesus said some slaves deserve beatings. It kind of seems like God is saying that some do deserve it, right? So.
Okay. So you're addressing me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm not like you can be like, it sounds like you're well read in the scripture. Like, are you a Christian or?
I'm an ex-Christian.
Ex-Christian. Okay. Yeah. I mean, why did you like choose to become an ex-Christian?
Because God condones slavery and says it's okay to beat slaves.
But when you were in a relationship with God, you didn't feel goodness and love and benefits to your life and your relationships and your ability to.
Oh, I loved it. It wasn't enough to offset the slavery thing. So
you experienced the good of God, you experienced the goodness of God, and then you're like, okay, no, now I reject this because in the Old Testament there is this verse about beating slaves.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, it's your choice. But I mean, I would say that the goodness I've felt in my life from becoming a Christian is, I mean, it's like, I would never go back.
Sure. Well, I mean, just to be clear, like now that I've left it, I still like feel really good. I have all the same great, awesome feelings. I realize that those were just coming from me. And now I can have all that good stuff without having to like participate in a book.
But you rejected
the God that condones.
You rejected the things that the thing that gave you those good.
I thought it was. It turns out it was just it was all the friends that we made along the way where the power actually had lied, and it was all like within myself. I don't know if you've seen Dumbo. You know the movie Dumbo. He has that feather. It was like one of those situations.
We're like in like the Wizard of Oz, where at the end of it, he's like,
and like.
You know,
I see some
you
comments,
did great, and here's a degree.
You had like all along.
Like saying that the love, like someone said, the love I felt as a Christian is worth enslaving other people, and I would say it's not an enslaving mindset at all.
Well, no, it's about beating them. I think that's sorry to bring us back to topic. I know you want to not be on topic here, but the original topic I think was about beating slaves and whether or not they deserve it. And like we mentioned, Jesus says that some slaves do deserve it, which I think originally we're talking about the Amalekite babies, whether or not they deserve it. So it's about like, you know, if God gives people what they deserve, and according to God, sometimes slaves deserve beatings. So that sucks. And
but like people are saying like, oh, you think a book gave us our morals, but it's not. The book is the inspired word of God, but those morals come from God.
No, definitely do not get your morals from the book. Yeah, that's a bad book, because it endorses, you know, slavery and beating.
Oh, well, no, I would say the New Testament, right? Like it's, I don't think people in the comments have it fulfills the New Test or the Old Testament, but it's like
here's the rest of the stuff.
If you read the Gospels, like everything, the Gospels and the church letters, like everything in there is very. It's nothing
Jesus
is like.
Did change. Sorry to interrupt, but Jesus did come and change some of the rules. He was like, I know in the Old Testament there was these divorce rules. Now here's the new divorce rule. I know we used to stone women for adultery, not this one. And then they were like, hey, here's the story about slavery. he mentioned.
No, they said
And he
don't
didn't-
stone this woman because they said let he without
Right.
sin cast
Yeah.
the first stone.
That's
That's a
the new
pretty
rule.
good moral.
That's the new rule. We
teaching.
fixed the Old Testament rule, right? And then when he talked about slavery, he didn't say, by the way, don't do slavery anymore. He said some slaves deserve beatings. Would have been a really good time for him to say, don't have slaves, right?
Yeah. And in fact, like, I might say the time where it would be best received is like after they themselves escape slavery. That seems like the best time to be like, you know, you just suffered this atrocity. Now you know just how bad it is.
Right.
Don't do it. But instead he was like,
you don't
know,
have any
it's your
slaves right
turn now.
It's a good time to start. Don't
Yeah.
get any. Yeah, nobody said, here, go get some. And it's okay to beat them. It's
I
terrible.
would say that the overall like the good news of the gospel was that Jesus Christ, who was the begotten Son of God, died for our sins, conquered death, resurrected, and you have the free choice to believe in him or to not believe in him. Everything that comes from believing in him is good, and I can attest to that in my own life. And that I look at like things that I did previously, like from my earlier years, you know, I would say this is like my second year or first year as a Christian. And it's like I can look back with clarity and repentance. My relationships have improved. The way I love has improved. The way that I battle things I struggled with, like lust or feeling like alone, have all gone away.
I mean, I was raised Christian, so I used to be like a misogynist. And
Christians are not misogynists.
I was raised just to follow the words in the New Testament, so it is like it says that in there. And I was pretty xenophobic too, if I'm going to be honest.
You don't
But then
understand.
when I switched, you know, every time you change your worldview, you think you're changing it for the better. No one intentionally changes their worldview for like.
I don't think I'm.
And today I will believe the
better.
false things.
Yeah, right. So you think like, oh, now I'm on the right track. That happens to everybody. Yeah.
But I don't like think though. It's like I know because like it's a feeling. It's like you can.
Well, if it's a feeling, then you are thinking it. Doesn't mean you know it. That's like.
A feeling transcends anything we can explain, I would say.
Do you think anyone has ever felt something wrong? Because I feel like God doesn't exist.
Well, yeah, I would say that's wrong.
Then feelings aren't very good, like, source of truth, I guess.
I mean, that's your free.
Sorry,
free
Ian,
choice.
you probably could have
No,
said that. That's a classic Ian line.
Do you,
That's your thing.
Guess, do you have, Dylan, do you have any like thoughts on like when Paul in the New Testament is talking about how, like in church, for example, like women need to pipe down?
He doesn't say women need to pipe down. It's just that
It's actually much more brutal than that.
that women do not have like authority to teach the gospel in the church.
It's a bit more than they don't have the authority to teach the gospel in the church.
Pretty
Exactly
sure, if
what
I
it
can remember, it says, let a woman learn in silence with full submission, and I do not permit a woman to teach or have authority over a man. She is to keep silent.
The concept of submission of a woman to a man is often very misconstrued because I think a lot of people think it means that a woman just needs to submit to whatever the man does and says. And that's not true at all. A man is a leader in faith.
Are women allowed to be leaders in faith?
I mean, a woman can
according to Paul, not you.
A woman can like my girlfriend, for example, like she has led me in my faith at times. Yeah. But I would say that
Paul
in our relationship, no, that's not, she can't teach in a church. She can't
says that she's supposed to ask like the husband for ideas about religion because Adam was formed first, then Eve. Adam was deceived, or Eve was deceived, not Adam. They're implying that women are dum-dums. That's like the point of
maybe I could just read the verse for context. This is 1 Corinthians, what is this, 20, 34 through 36? Yeah. Or sorry, 1 Corinthians 14, 34 through 36. I was doing
Timothy.
Women should be silent in the churches, for they are not permitted to speak, but should be subordinate, as the law also says. If there is something you want to learn, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is shameful for a woman to speak in church. Or did the word of God originate with you, or are you the only ones that it has reached?
What translation are you
The
reading?
NRSV UE.
Okay. I mean, I would recommend the like KJV or the Catholic, NSV tradition or edition. I would say that like the wording kind of is different, and it's not saying that like, oh, women just need to submit to whatever their husband says. It's that like a husband has an authoritative role in a relationship, in a marriage.
I can, if it helps, I can read. The one I was looking at is a different one. It's from 1 Timothy, and I'll do it in KJV. It says, "Let the woman learn in silence with all subjection. But I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence. For Adam was first formed." Yeah?
Yeah, that doesn't like go against
Holy
anything.
shit! Yeah, so this is the Christian misogyny we're talking about. An atheist would hear that and go,
"That's what I was trying to explain."
No,
yeah, because
right?
I get it.
Like, yeah.
No, I get it though, because like like I get where you're saying like it could be misogynistic, but that's when you're saying misogyny, like you're implying that the husband, the man, can do whatever the fuck they want, and the woman,
there's
woman
like
can
ways to be like misogynistic without being able to do whatever the fuck you want, right? Like if you say, women shut the fuck up, like that's misogynistic, but you don't need like sovereign authority over all women for that to be misogynistic.
I would say that a flourishing relationship is one that is where the man is the leader.
That's the misogyny. That's it right there. You just said
that?
That's not misogyny.
What does that mean?
That's not.
Yeah, it is.
So like
that's exactly just technically what the word means, right?
So like it's not that like women are worth less. It's just like if
what
there's like the men are like
they're not as smart or something.
No, not at all.
Or they're not as good at leading.
They're not.
What sort of decisions do you think the man should make?
But this is not to say that women can't lead like in society, right? There's like plenty like of female leaders. It's not like with that. This is in the context of a marriage that we're talking about.
Ian was just saying, like, you can be a misogynist even if it's not like a wide scope misogyny of all things. If you're like, yeah, some women can go be leaders and some should stay in the kitchen, that's still misogynistic.
Can you just look up, give me like, I know that what the word misogyny means, but I would define it as like, can you just pull up a definition so we can...
Yeah, like I don't know, like false prejudices against women.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say that.
Oh, he thinks it's true. That's why.
Oh, yeah.
No. I think that misogyny is like exactly that definition. It's false. Like, read it again.
Yeah, like, oh, sorry. This is like a personal. The dictionary is dislike of contempt for or ingrained prejudice against women.
Yeah, which I would say that is not a Christian teaching at all.
Okay.
Not at all. It's
I
not like that you have a.
I really haven't gotten.
It's not that you have like a prejudice or like a.
What sort of decisions do you think that men should make that women shouldn't?
It's just like in the role of like a family or like a marriage.
Give me an example of like a decision that you think men should make and women shouldn't.
It's not that like there's decisions that only men should make over women. It's just like
what's one that they should have like the final say on.
Dude, I'm
that
trying
women
to
shouldn't.
explain to you. I'm trying to explain. So
I'm
like,
trying to get clear. I'm not getting like any answer.
Dylan, explain it to us like we're women. Like teach it to us as if we were women, so we can understand it.
Okay.
Speak down to us a little bit. It'll help.
Dude, you're so. That was funny. All right. No, like I would never talk down to women. Of course not. Like I don't view women as less than men. That's not the teaching of the Bible at all.
Well, it says they can't do as many things because men can lead and women shouldn't. So
It's
one
that's an
less than-
authoritative. That's in an authoritative position in
We
the
still
church.
didn't get the
like, women
fucking
can't-
answer. Oh my! What does it mean for men to lead the
Dude,
relationship?
I'm trying to explain. Okay, I will answer your question.
Yeah.
It is a question that cannot be answered in one sentence. So you're gonna
Okay.
need to allow me to speak for a little
Okay,
bit.
as long as it's like relevant.
Okay, I promise you it will be relevant. Okay, so like in a relationship, it's not that like the man just does whatever they want, says whatever they want, and the woman has to listen.
Yeah, I know.
There's-
That's not what it is. But
there-
what is it?
Okay, yeah, I'm explaining. Okay, so a man and a woman, like they have a conjoined marriage. Like in a marriage, they're one flesh, which is like a beautiful, like sacrament of love, like to be conjoined together as one. And so that doesn't mean that like the man is like, oh, I'm better than this woman. It's just like that in that relationship, they have an authoritative role and it may come to certain things. And that's how we're created
what?
by nature. I mean,
What are the
it's
certain
by nature.
things?
It would be, it's just like that a woman wants like a guy that is strong and that leads with her best interest in mind.
Wait, that's
And
an
she
empirical claim. What's the data on that? That says
But she
every
has
single
to
woman
have
wants
full-
this.
Wait, let me explain. She has to have full trust in the man, which
Okay,
requires
I'm going to ask you the
man
exact
to-
question that I just asked you after you're done.
Dude, it's just like
You're
I
making
just,
an
like, am not
empirical
getting
claim.
anywhere.
You're making a claim about what women want. That's like a psychology claim. What's the data that says that all women want somebody to like lead the relationship?
God made us this way.
Okay. So I
But it
just don't
doesn't-
find this view to be compelling at all.
It's just
But
If it
doesn't-
relies
but I think
on-
that you just think that it's like that.
Do
the
you
guy
think
can
so?
do
So
whatever
when
the
like a
fuck
when a
they
woman
want,
tells
though.
you, actually,
'Cause
this is
there's
a
a
really
lot of
easy
to-
argument for
there's
the
a lot of
non-existence of
toxic-
God. You know,
there's
maybe
a
I
lot
could
of
give you this
toxic
argument. You know,
misogyny in
if
society, for
Christianity
sure.
is
Like, I
true,
agree.
if Christianity is true, then all women want a man to lead them. Not all women want a man to lead them.
The comments.
Therefore, Christianity is not true.
I can just check some data on this 1 second real quick.
Would you reject like the first
Hey,
one
babe,
here or
do
the
you want
second
me
one?
to lead you? She said no. She said no down the hall. I was just asking my wife.
Yeah, that was a good argument there. Just like asking that question.
Well, it's just so this my one wife disproves Christianity according to this syllogism.
Okay. Okay, so what is this you've written?
Yeah, it's just like the disproof of Christianity. You know, if Christianity is true, then all women want a man to lead them. Not all women want a man to lead them. Therefore, Christianity is not true.
So you use the word want, so that's deferring to our human free choice to do whatever we want. Okay, so yes,
You used this word first. You said that women want a man to lead them, like a strong
You're
man
right.
to
You're
lead
right.
them.
You are right. I misspoke.
Sure. What do you think the
Like,
correct phrase is?
Okay, I would rephrase that like in a relationship that is godly, that brings about nothing but good. There has to, and this requires accountability on both ends, and it's not at all saying, because yes, I agree. There's a in society there's a very toxic misogyny that goes around, right?
Yes.
And it's like that word has, I would say in the past like few years really come about in society. And so I think that this is like a thing that is a lot of people have a problem with, because they think that it's the same, like the Bible is being misogynistic. But it's like in a relationship that's
In what
true,
way
a
are they
love that's
supposed to
true.
lead? That's the question,
Were they-
Dylan. In what way, when you say men are supposed to lead the relationship, what does that mean? Give a specific example
that's
of
a hard
this.
thing to like.
Actually can help with
give
this. Like there's a verse that kind of ties it to what we were talking about before.
Can I maybe explain what I would say?
Sure, yeah. I was just going to do Peter's thing, but go ahead.
It would just be to, as like a man yourself, like really strive to be closer to God, fear God, and to carry out good fruits of your faith. Like be a loyal man, a trustworthy man, right? And in this way, to your woman, like you want to be patient with her, kind in all scenarios. It's not like just shut up and listen to me and do what I
then
say.
the vice versa is also true, right? Like, women with their men should be patient and kind.
Yeah, for sure.
So then in what way are men leading? If it's the same thing,
Because
like your criteria for men is that, well, what men leading means is that they should be patient and kind, but that's also true for women. Women should be patient and kind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
with
those are
their
virtues that
partners.
everyone should like exuberate. But
In what way are they leading?
Yeah, I'm going to explain. It's just like, I would say there's an authoritative role that the man has in the relationship.
Which includes what?
Like, I would say in the relationship, at some point you should be leading.
Which includes what? Leading what?
In faith,
how?
leading in faith, getting you and your partner closer to God. And like, I don't know, you just like have the
when you're
say in certain things. It's not that the woman is not like also advising you.
So when your partner helped you get closer to God, was she leading?
I wouldn't say leading in the relationship, no, but she was like improving my faith. But now we're in a spot where like, I would say I am leading us, if that makes sense.
It doesn't. You're saying that what it means to lead the relationship is that you help your partner grow in faith, but you wouldn't say that your partner was leading you when she helped you grow in faith.
Like, I wouldn't say it's like a thing about like who gets the final say or so to speak, but it's just like,
what does it mean?
It's just like if there's certain problems that are coming up or certain things that there's like a conflict or something, like, and you try and work it out, like there does at some point need to be like an order, and the man has like an authority in that way, I guess, but it's not.
And what does that authority allow them to do?
Just be a good leader. It's like it's
lead
just like
what?
Yeah, I don't.
What
know
are they
if I
leading?
could really, like, put that. I don't know if I could really like put that into words though.
Well, that's crazy to me that you can't do that. I mean, I could tell you at length when I was leading my high school robotics team or leading my college debate team, the sort of responsibilities that went into that. I'm baffled that you're saying like you lead your relationship, but you can't specify in any way, shape, or form what that means.
Yeah, because it's not just something I would say the way that it looks is not something that's easy to convey into words. That's what I would say.
Would your girlfriend agree that you lead her?
Yeah.
That makes me sad. Well,
I'm suspicious
okay.
of it.
I mean,
well, here's what Peter would
very
say.
happy.
If I can
She's very happy.
Do this verse real quick, because I think it's really like relevant to the conversation. In 1 Peter chapter 3, he says, "Wives, in the same way, be subject to your husbands, so that even if some of them do not obey the word, they may be won over without a word by their wives' conduct." And he gives all these like rules, like don't braid your hair or wear gold. But notice he said, "Wives, in the same way, be subject." Well, in what way? What could he possibly be talking about? Oh, I see in the context here. The chapter before, "Slaves, be subject to your masters with all respect. If you endure when you are beaten for doing wrong, what credence is that? But if you endure when you are good and suffer for it, this is commendable thing before God." Wives, in the same way, be subject to your husbands, like a beaten slave.
No, that's not what it's saying at all.
Literally exactly what it says.
No, it's not. That's such a misconstrued gospel that you're.
I'm just reading the words. I use the Brockenheimer method. I don't know how you read it, but that's what it says here.
Yeah, well, I would say that it's just let me see how to explain this. Okay, think about that time frame, how unpopular it was to have just like one wife, right? So we have this concept of marriage that is something in the gospel that, like, how can you not see that as something that's incredibly good? Like, one partner, one spouse for life. How is that? Think about how whack that idea would have been at the time.
A bunch of people seemed fine with it. Some people
That
did
was
it, some didn't.
That was a very like controversial, like objective truth that was said by Jesus, right?
When does he says to just have one?
Yeah, he's like, when you're, a marriage is between
How many
one man, one woman,
how many does Paul tell you to have?
one wife. A marriage is between one.
Sorry, he says
marriage
one.
is
He
between
says
two
one
people.
fewer than that. He says don't.
Oh yeah, like he said. Actually, yeah, that's a good point.
Which
It's
you
like,
should think about, Dylan. That's something that you should probably do, is not like be in a relationship since you're like have a like rotten worldview.
thanks. But yeah, so what he's saying there is like he is calling all people to be like him. Because like if you have a spouse, you're confined to worldly things. Like there is something of the flesh that you're like worried about. Like you're basically like worrying about problems of the world, which is very few people. He's like, I want all people to be as I am. So as is Paul, I want all people to be as I am. But if you're aflame with passion, then to marry. So it's like, we're not all called to that celibacy, but there's beauty in that celibacy because those people are married only to Christ and the church. That's their whole life where that love is sufficient, and they remain chaste because their whole will is caught up in just God alone, just Christ alone. They don't marry.
Okay, sure. So
But
do you think
very
that
few are? Sorry, go ahead.
So you do think like if you were a better Christian, you would break up with your girlfriend?
No, I would say that I feel like my purpose is to have a family, and I have a woman that I love very much, and we want to get married.
Okay, but
together,
which one's
so it's
better,
like-
to get married or to stay celibate and single?
Well, like Paul is like, I wish all were like I am, but obviously not all have that grace where they are called into celibacy. Like that was his
Which one
calling,
does he
and that's
say is
what
better?
priests-
He says one of
Well,
them is better. Which one does he say is better? He
yeah,
says one of
being
them is like, you
I-
can do it if you just can't handle this. But
yeah, exactly. Like if you like,
so he does say that it's better to not get married.
yeah, in a sense, yeah. Like
Sure.
you
So
would be,
then it would
yeah.
be better for you to break up with your girlfriend than to still be with her.
Well, not necessarily, because he's saying like, but if I wish all to be like I am, but if you're aflame with passion, then to marry. Like I am someone who does not have that calling. Like I feel it that I need to get married. But some people, like a priest, like in the Catholic Church, for example, like they are called to that calling, that celibacy.
Would you say it's better? You would be better if you weren't attracted to your girlfriend or anyone for that matter?
Yeah, it would be better for my relationship with Christ to not have any worldly problems or anything of this world to worry about, and only focus on Christ. But that is definitely not I'm not capable of that. And I recognize, like Paul, in his way that he was celibate, like I admire him so much. And I admire like priests that are celibate so much. Like I am under authority to them. Like that's like I am in awe of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's weird. I wouldn't, on my worldview, I wouldn't say that I'd be better off not attracted to my girlfriend.
Well, yeah, but you don't believe in Christ, so it's like I feel like you don't really.
Would you ever tell your
understand-
girlfriend that you'd be better off like not attracted to her?
Well, I mean, it works the same way with like nuns. Like nuns exuberate celibacy as well.
But would you ever
So it's
say
not-
that to her?
But she would agree that like with me that it's like for
Yeah.
her as well. Like she would agree with what Paul is saying. Like it would be better for both of us to not be married, right, and only pursue Christ, but we are not, that is not our like calling, like it was for Paul's, or it was for like a priest, for example.
But I'm just
Calling
asking,
is
like,
just your feeling, right? Like it's just what you kind of like. You feel too horny to not do this.
No, I wouldn't say horny, but it's just like I feel it's
how,
my
like, Paul and Jesus talk about it. They're like, anyone should do this.
Well,
Anyone who
yeah,
can do this,
I mean,
do it.
kind of to an extent, maybe. Like, I feel like horny is maybe kind of a profane way to say it, but it's just like, yeah,
I don't know, like what language.
I recognize that like I am not able to live a celibate life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think horny is the right word then.
Well, Dylan, we've been talking for an hour and a half, so I appreciate the
thank you for
conversation.
Your time, both of
yeah,
you.
hey, thanks so much. Appreciate you coming on up. Let's. So here's what I'm gonna do. I am dropping a new video. I just dropped it. It's titled. It's gonna have one of three names. It's titled.
Bro, you're
Christian gets upset with logic for some reason, but it might also have like one of a few other names. Go right now there, leave a like, drop a comment, drop a subscribe. It's my YouTube, allegedlyian. I'd love to see you there. Let's watch the intro trailer.
Bro, you're just projecting. You're totally projecting. Right now, what you're doing is projecting. You just said you just literally
did like a bunch of like fire ants like crawl into your
I'm
shoes.
I'm passionate right now because what you just said is like a ton
You're like
of
freaking
crap,
the fuck
bro.
out.
What you just said is insane.
What? Which part of that? How old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay, and what religion?
Christian.
Sure. What makes you think that God exists? Oh, I see Joel is live too. We can give Joel a raid, but okay, let's read supers. Let's do our final super read. Flexi, thanks so much for the super chat. What's the argument for moral realism? Would you ever debate it? I said it a bit earlier in stream, but it basically goes like this. I'm an agent. What that means is that I take actions to achieve goals. To achieve any of these goals, I need my rights to freedom and well-being, which means that I need for you to not interfere with any of that. And I'm saying that I have this right just because I'm an agent, which means that all agents must have this right. So all agents have a right to freedom and well-being. Catholic Thinker, thanks so much for the super chat. I appreciate your patience with the waffling of answers sometimes given. I know it can be frustrating when it feels like a yes and no answer is given. Hey, well, I appreciate that. Catholic Thinker, you know I respect you. You know I appreciate you. You're a valued member of this community. A Stoic Master, thanks so much for the super chat. Wait, existence is existence? What the fuck? I thought it was a ham and cheese sandwich. Well, you would agree that that exists, right? Literally Lou, thank you so much for the $10 reduce. Let's get a big W for Lou. Massive W for Lou. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And thanks for all the work that you do. Many Black, thanks so much for the super chat. Love your work. Cool jacket, by the way. Thanks. Eat some shorts. Thanks so much for the super chat. Dear Ian, I love the arrangement of your neurotransmitters. May they continue to be well-balanced salts. Thank you. May the Morton Salt Girl bless us all. Good question. Do people of God commit less immoral actions than heathens, atheists, and anti-theists? I don't think so. I don't think the empirical data bears that out either. I think that if you look at the countries that are most atheist and compare them to the countries that are most Christian, it's not clear that one of these countries has like better moral character. Webster, thanks so much for the super chat. Nice new look, bro. You're looking great. Yep, summer came. Or I guess like spring. Everything's blooming. It's cool. I'm going to see tomorrow, I'm going to go with my girlfriend to see the cherry blossoms in DC. I hear that it's fucking packed though, so that sucks, but gonna give it a C. Glitterlock, thanks so much for the super chat. Backward Hack Guy, Caller is such a powerful tool for Satan. I can't imagine anyone listening to this caller and not wanting to run, not walk away from. That's funny. Run, not walk away from Christianity. Keep up the great work, Caller. You're doing the devil's work. True. I don't know. The cognitive dissonance was. Vintage Gaming, thanks so much for the super chat. I wish God was real because I'd fight him. You want to hit him with a Dr. Fudge, thanks so much for the super chat. They become one flesh, one in mass, mouthless, needing to scream. True. Relax with Russell ASMR. Thanks so much for the super chat. Everything I learned from him is good. My brother in Christ, you're unable to say that the death penalty for infants is unjust. True. Falcon Hoof, thanks so much for the super chat. Is this Andrew Wilson's little bro? Could be. Okay. Love all of you. Check it out. Gotta go check it out. Check out the YouTube video or raid Joel. One of those.